we have to.
I'm ready.
Yeah, go ahead. There's a reason.
The Senate will come to order. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores, Gutierrez, Hagenbu, Hall, Hancock, Hinojosa of Nueces, Hinojosa of Hidalgo, Huffman, Hughes, Johnson, King, Colcourse, Menendez, Middleton, Miles, Nichols, Parker, Paxton, Perry, Schwartner, Sparks, West, Zaffarini.
The quorum is present. For those in the gallery, please rise for the invocation to be delivered by Pastor Steve Bowman, leaving a Legacy Coaches Ministry in Flatonia, Texas.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here this morning. Let us pray. Lord, we come to you this morning in a spirit of gratitude and thankfulness. We pause to reflect on all the blessings you've bestowed upon us, both individually and as a state. We thank you for our families and dear friends. We thank you for being able to be here in this place to guide the future of Texas, not only for today, but for generations to come. From the Red River to the Rio Grande and from El Paso to Texarkana, we stand in awe at the wonders that you have made. No matter what part of this great state we call home, we are truly one state under God. We're all gathered together here this morning, senators, staffers, security, and spectators. I offer this challenge to myself and to all. Lord, today help us to abide by your instructions in Philippians chapter 2. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interest of the others. Lord, how different would our state and our country and our world look if we all lived by these words? So, Lord, help us to leave a legacy for those who follow us. Help us to be like the greatest servant leader who ever walked the face of the earth, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And it is in his name I pray these things. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Bowman. Members, if you have an opportunity, please greet the pastor as he exits the chamber. You may be seated in the gallery. The Dean of the Senate moves to excuse Senator King on account of a death in the family. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The motion's adopted. The Dean of the Senate moves to dispense with the reading of yesterday's journal. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The motion is adopted. Chair recognizes Dean Zaffarini for recognition.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President and members, it is my pleasure to recognize the delegation of leaders celebrating Karnes County Day at our state capitol. Founded in 1854, Karnes County was named for Henry Wax Karnes, a hero of the Texas Revolution. Originally rooted in ranching and farming, Karnes County became a significant oil-producing area in the 20th century, and today is one of the most productive counties in the Eagle Ford Shale. The county has a legacy of resilience and adaptability, evolving from frontier days to modern times while continuing to support agriculture, industry, and small-town life. We have some impressive leaders with us today, and I'd ask each to rise as I call his or her name. To begin with, Judge Jennifer Dillingham of the 81st Judicial District Court, Sheriff Stephen Bailey, County Commissioners Benny Lissy and Wesley Geisler, Justice of the Peace Trent Enriquez, Chief of the Karnes County EMS Casey Ibram, City of Kennedy Council members Felipe Leal and Richard Sauceda, and Kennedy Economic Development Corporation Board member Gary Richards. Will the entire delegation please rise and be recognized, and welcome to the Texas Senate. Thank you, Mr. President and members.
Chair lays out the following resolution. The Secretary will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 388 by Schwartner, recognizing the Texas Association of Museums in honor of its 50th anniversary.
Chair recognizes Senator Schwartner on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this resolution is recognizing the great work of the Texas Association of Museums. The Texas Association of Museums is marking a monumental milestone, its 50th annual meeting in 2025 with the theme of Bridging the Past and Future. Their mission is to strengthen the Texas museum community through collaboration, connections, professional development, and advocacy. The association's annual event brings together museum professionals, educators, historians, and enthusiasts to exchange innovative ideas and explore best practices. The Texas Senate recognizes the significant role of museums, gardens, zoos, and archives in preserving history, enriching cultural understanding, and fostering lifelong learning. I congratulate the Texas Association of Museums, its members, and attendees, wishing them continued success in their important efforts to shape the future of museums in Texas. If y'all would please stand. Anyone from the Texas Association of Museums? There y'all are. Welcome. Thank y'all for coming to the state capitol. Welcome to the Texas Senate. With that, Mr. President, I move adoption of Senate Resolution 388.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. The resolution is adopted. The following message from the governor. The Secretary will read the message.
To the Senate of the 89th Legislature, regular session, I ask the advice, consent, and confirmation of the Senate with respect to the following appointments. To be members of the Texas Diabetes Council, Darrell S. Jones, Farmers Branch, Michael P. Kelly, El Paso, Jason M. Ryan, Houston, Kelly R. Renee Yarbrough, Yale, North Richland Hills. Respectfully submitted, Greg Abbott, Governor of Texas, to nominations.
Chair recognizes Senator Campbell to introduce the Doctor of the Day.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Well, today it's my honor to introduce the Doctor of the Day, Dr. Hyun Shi. Thank you. She is an MD PhD, so she went a little longer, took a little bit harder path than regular MD, but she is a family medicine physician PhD. She has her PhD in physiology from University of Texas Health Science Center, San Antonio. She's currently an assistant professor at UT San Antonio Health Department of Family and Community Medicine. She's former academic chief resident during her family medicine residency. She's a dedicated educator, serving as a preceptor for medical students in their early training. She's an award-winning researcher and physician, focusing on aging, chronic diseases, and community health. Joining us today with her is a first-year resident, Callista Moses. She's a resident at University of Texas Health Science Center, San Antonio. So members, help me welcome the doctors of today. Both of them of today. Thank you very much.
Chair lays out the following resolutions. The secretary will read the resolutions.
SR 380 by West, SR 382 by Hagenbu, SR 387 by Kolgors.
This is a voice vote. Members, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The resolutions are adopted. Members, if there's no objection, I'd like to postpone the reading and referral of bills and resolutions until the end of today's calendar. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Members, that concludes the morning call. Senator Sparks, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 868.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I move at this time to suspend the regular order of business in order to take up and consider Senate Bill 868. During the historic 2024 Panhandle fires that burned over 1 million acres, it was largely volunteer fire departments that faced the roaring flames. The Texas Rural Volunteer Fire Department Assistance Program provides funding to rural volunteer fire departments for acquiring firefighting vehicles, fire and rescue equipment, protective clothing, dry hydrants, computer systems, and firefighting training. The committee substitute to Senate Bill 868 allocates a minimum of 10% of appropriations for the Rural Volunteer Fire Department Assistance Program to fire departments in areas of Texas that are at high risk for large wildfires. This will ensure volunteer fire departments, which cover more than 85% of the state land, receive the necessary resources to prepare for and respond to increasingly severe fire seasons, improving safety and effectively protecting Texans. The current grant metric calculation results in many volunteer fire departments waiting years for equipment. Dedicating annual funding ensures these volunteer fire departments in high-risk areas receive consistent support. With that, Mr. President, I move suspension.
Senator Sparks moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 868. Is there objection? Hearing no objection, the rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute for Senate Bill 868. The secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 868, relating the allocation of money appropriated to the Rural Volunteer Fire Department Assistance Program.
Senator Sparks, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Sparks moves passage to engrossment. Is there objection? Hearing no objection, the bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Sparks, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
Thank you, Mr. President. So moved.
Senator Sparks moves suspension of the 3-day rule. The secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Creighton, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores, Gutierrez, Hagenbu, Hall.
There being 30 ayes and 0 nays, the rules are suspended. Chair lays out on third reading and final passage committee substitute for Senate Bill 868. The secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 868, relating the allocation of money appropriated to the Rural Volunteer Fire Department Assistance Program.
Senator Sparks, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move final passage of Senate Bill 868.
Senator Sparks moves final passage of committee substitute for Senate Bill 868. The secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores, Gutierrez, Hagenbu, Hall.
There being 30 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is finally passed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Mr. Doorkeeper.
Mr. President, there's a message from the House.
Admit the messenger.
Mr. President, I am directed by the House to inform the Senate that the House has taken the following action. The House has passed the following measures, HCR 35 or DAWS, urging Congress to amend internal.
Senator Perry, you're recognized to suspend the committee substitute for Senate Bill 2064, suspend the regular order of business.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, if you have not gotten a green card on Senate Bill 2064, you need to have one. It's one of those kind of sleeper bills that nobody knows. Specifically, currently in the state of Texas, if you have a spouse that deceases or you decease, your spouse could be taxed on the transfer of that vehicle to you, which is contrary to any and all exemptions for marital trust and federal law, state law. So Senate Bill 2064 prohibits the tax of a transfer of a vehicle between closely family members going forward. With that, I move suspend the regular order of business of committee substitute Senate Bill 2064.
Any objection? Hearing none, rules suspended. Chair lays out second reading committee substitute 2064. Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 2064 relating to an exemption from certain taxes imposed on the transfer of a motor vehicle.
You're recognized. Pass it to engrossment.
Move pass to engrossment.
Any objection? Hearing none, bill passed to engrossment. You're recognized to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
Move to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell.
30 ayes, no nays, rules suspended. Chair lays out third reading and final passage. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2064. Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 2064 relating to an exemption from certain taxes imposed on the transfer of motor vehicle.
You're recognized on final.
Move final passage. Committee
Secretary
substitute
will call the roll.
2064. Thanks.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell.
30 ayes, no nays, bill is finally passed.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Members, we have a very important bill here. Senator Colcourse, you know what? Every bill is important because it's important to someone, even if it's a small group.
Yes.
So you're in charge of carrying important bills for small groups? You're recognized to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 2112.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business and take up and consider at this time Senate Bill 2112. Members, Senate Bill 2112 was filed to enhance the enforcement, allowing authorities to issue fines for minor violations and pursue stronger penalties for repeat offenders with our state's oyster industry. Through the years, I've carried several bills, and we, with Representative Hunter and our bays and estuaries, we've created quite an oyster mariculture industry. This bill has proposed changes that would allow the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department to cite certain violators with a fine-only penalty, so it reduces some of those from a Class B to a Class C, and then it, on those repeat offenders, ups some of those to Class A's. And so, members, there's been a lot of input on this and a lot of consensus on it. It was a good bill. And so, Mr. President, I move to suspend the regular order of business to take care of that small group of people and a growing industry along our coastline.
You know what? We value them. They're important, and a lot of people eat oysters. But I have a question for you. So you're the oyster queen, kind of. You carry all these
I've carried
bills.
a lot of bills.
Got a lot of oyster bills. So we changed the New York strip to Texas strip. because why should New York get credit for it? So why should Oyster Rockefeller be named after a New York governor? Why not Oysters Bush? I think it's much better.
We need to do that, for
Okay.
sure.
That'll be another bill of yours. Pardon? Yes, what did you say? Oysters Patrick? I'm fine. I'm fine. Oysters Rockefeller. We got to get all the New York names out of here. Any objection to her important bill, which is important to the oyster industry? Hearing none, the rules are suspended. Chair lays out second reading. Senate Bill 2112. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 2112, relating to punishment for certain criminal offenses related to cultivated oyster mariculture, increasing a criminal penalty.
You're recognized for passage to engrossment.
Thank you. So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. All oyster lovers are okay. You're recognized to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved, Mr. President.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
29 ayes and 1 non-oyster person. Who could that be? No.
Mr. President, definitely an inland person who doesn't represent the coast.
There's one mystery no vote on this bill here.
I'm going to guess who it is.
So the bill passes the constitutional 3-day rule. And now on third reading and final passage, Senate Bill 2112, you're recognized.
I move final passage of Senate Bill 2112.
I'm sorry. You know, the secretary could read the caption if a bipartisan interruption here of this is bipartisan interruption. Go ahead.
Senate Bill 2112, relating to the punishment for certain criminal offenses related to cultivated oyster mariculture.
I don't think we've ever had a bipartisan interruption of the secretary. It's usually just Betancourt up here. So Roland, don't encourage him, okay? If you start getting up here and distracting her, we have a problem if you two join forces. You're recognized on final passage. Did you read the caption?
Passage.
You did read the caption, okay. Final adoption, Secretary, call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
29 ayes and 1 non-oyster person. The bill is finally passed.
Thank you, Mr. President and members.
Senator Hinojosa from Nueces, committee substitute for Senate Bill 1484. By the way, do you know what, speaking of seafood, do you know what catfish noodling is? We passed a bill on that.
What is it?
Remember that? Catfish noodling.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, we're about to talk about catfishing catfish.
Okay. Catfish noodling, by the way, is when you put your hand under the water and grab the catfish and get your fingers bitten. That's what that is. We actually had a bill on that years ago. It was important. Go ahead, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend the regular order of business and take up and consider committee substitute for Senate Bill 1484. Members, this bill is a common sense measure to protect Texas consumers and support American catfish farmers through truth in labeling. Currently imported fish such as sway, which is imported from Vietnam, can be represented as American catfish in restaurants. Sway are often raised in overcrowded, poorly regulated conditions with minimal oversight on water quality or contaminants. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 1484 will require accurate labeling of these products throughout the supply chain and prohibits restaurants from labeling any fish that is not American catfish as such on their menus. The committee substitute stipulates that a business can only be penalized under one of the two enforcement provisions, but not under both, and also provides an affirmative defense for good faith purchasers. With that, Mr. President, I move suspension.
This should have been your first bill. We could have had a really good day on this. Any objection to the catfish bill? The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute for Senate Bill 1484. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute, Senate Bill 1484, relating to the marketing and sale of catfish and similar fish food by food service establishments.
You're recognized on passage to engrossment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage to engrossment.
Any objection? Hearing none. Bill passed to engrossment. You're recognized under the constitutional 3-day rule.
Thank you, Mr. President. So moved.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
30 ayes and no nays. Apparently the person who doesn't like oysters does like catfish. The chair now lays out on committee substitute for Senate Bill 1484. Final passage. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee Substitute Senate Bill 1484 relating to the marketing and sale of catfish and similar fish by food service establishments.
You're recognized on final.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move final passage of Committee Substitute for 1484.
Secretary, read the caption.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
I meant call the roll. Forgive me. The final vote is 30-0. That's your second bill of the session already. Third bill of the session. All right.
Mr. President
congratulations.
and members, appreciate it.
Senator West, you're recognized to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 660. This is a third reading bill, members.
Third reading. So move.
Secretary will call the roll. When ready, take your time.
I'm not sure.
Secretary,
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
24 ayes and 6 nays, the rule is suspended. We now go to third reading and final passage. Chair lays out. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee Substitute Senate Bill 660 relating to the installation of bollards or another safety barrier adjacent to certain hospital emergency rooms.
You're recognized on final.
Move final passage of Senate Bill 660.
Hope these bollards work better than the bollards out there.
I agree with you 100%.
We have more cars on bollards than we have bollards on bollards. Secretary will call the vote when ready.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
23 ayes, 7 nays. The bill finally passed. Thank you. Senator Flores, recognized to suspend the regular order of business. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1809.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the regular order of business and to take up and consider Senate Bill 1809. So gift card fraud has been on the rise, with criminals exploiting various methods to illegally obtain or use gift cards. This includes stealing gift cards, tampering with the physical cards, and using stolen credit card information to purchase gift cards. Such activities not only result in financial losses for consumers and businesses, but undermine consumer confidence in using these gift cards as a secure method of payment. This bill seeks to address these issues by creating specific offenses and penalties, thereby providing law enforcement with the tools needed to prosecute offenders effectively. Gift cards are often targeted by fraudsters due to their monetary value and the ease by which they can be transferred and used. By establishing clear legal definitions and penalties for fraudulent actions involving gift cards, this bill aims to protect consumers, card issuers, and merchants from financial losses and uphold the integrity of gift card market. Senate Bill 1809 represents language negotiated with the Financial Crimes Intelligence Center and stakeholders and does the following. It broadens the applicability to include tampering with gift card packaging. It adds 2 definitions for the following terms: counterfeit gift card and digital imprint. It further defines the offense to include possession and transportation of stolen gift cards, gift card redemption information, or counterfeit cards, possession of the unlawfully obtained data stored in the digital imprint of a gift card, transport of an unactivated gift card, or gift card redemption information to a retail location with the intent to display it for sale. It adds a rebuttable presumption related to possession of 3 or more gift cards and changes the penalty structure from a value-based penalty to a punishment-based linked to the number of items that they unlawfully possess. I move to suspend the regular order of business, Mr. President.
Important bill, Senator. This is a real problem at the
Yes, sir.
retailers on these cards, and it can get the citizens involved in being on the short end. Any objection? Hearing none. Rules are suspended. Chair lays on second reading. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1809. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 1809 relating to the creation of the offense of fraudulent use, possession, or tampering with a gift card.
You and your friend there flying around are recognized on passage to engrossment.
I move passage to engrossment.
Any objection? Hearing none. Bill passed to engrossment. You recognize to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved, Mr. President.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Boardwell, Blanco.
29 ayes, 1 nay. The rules suspended. Chair lays out third reading and final passage. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1809. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 1809 relating to the creation of the offense of fraudulent use, possession, or tampering with a gift card.
You recognize on final.
So moved, final passage.
Secretary, read the caption. Call the roll, excuse me.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Boardwell.
29 ayes, 1 nay. The bill is finally passed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Senator Betancourt, you're recognized to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 32.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 32 and its companion, SJR 81, represents business tax relief, portion of the Texas Senate's tax relief proposals this session. Senate Bill 32 provides $700 million in tax relief this biennium to serve businesses through two primary measures, both which would take effect on January 1st, 2026. First, a committee substitute Senate bill will provide for an increase in the business personal property tax exemption from a $2,500 de minimis exemption up to a $25,000 universal exemption. At an average tax rate of $2.20 per $100 of value, the increased exemption will save businesses $495, nearly $500 on their average business personal property tax bill. Small businesses below the $25,000 threshold will no longer be required to render their property, saving them time, and of course, for small businesses, that's money too. Additionally, we've incorporated language to define relative business entity and unified business enterprises to prevent property owners from creating multiple business entities to receive multiple exemptions. But the best part of this bill is this bill provides 20% credit for taxes paid on inventory. This is one of the most important, I think, changes is to change the liability for property tax inventories across the state, and it can be claimed against a taxpayer's franchise tax liability. The credits will be administered on a pro rata basis up to 20% of the franchise tax liability. These franchise tax credits amount to $500 million in a fiscal year. There's approximately 130,000 franchise tax filers. We think approximately 59% have a retail or cost of goods sold deduction that may be able to benefit from the inventory tax credit. It's very similar to SB 5 that passed the Senate unanimously. Thank you, Mr. President. So, thank you. And combining the $700 million property tax relief in Senate Bill 32 with the $2.782 billion for raising the homestead exemption to $140,000 in SB 4 brings the Senate's total property tax relief package to $3.5 billion, not even counting the R&D tax credit that moved out of the Finance Committee. And I know that the president has plans for more, like an over 65 exemption increase he announced on Thursday. So with that, Mr. President and members, move suspension of the regular order of business and take up and consider the committee substitute to Senate Bill 32.
I don't want to start a precedent of bringing someone water because it doesn't count in a filibuster. Only when it's a non-filibuster, a glass of water.
I would have been DQ'd on a filibuster.
Sorry, Senator Alvarado.
Yeah, that's right. But she had a bag, if I remember. I can't remember what was in it.
And don't spill that water or Patsy will fine me.
Not a drop, Mr. President, not a drop.
Senator Gutierrez, what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the gentleman yield for a few questions?
Do you yield?
Certainly.
Senator Betancourt, I think this is a great amendment, and I want to take a moment to just identify some people that just asked me in my office about ad valorem tax exemptions. I've got some kids from East Central High School. They saw a bill in the House, Belinda and Jaden and Marshall and their teacher, Ms. Tillotson. They asked me about a similar bill in the House, and I want to talk about the importance of this bill.
Sure.
Even to my law practice that has a bunch of old computers, I have to pay taxes on those, don't I?
Right, up to right now $2,500.
And every year,
even in your old law firm, it's worth more than that.
All right. Well, I promise you, I haven't bought any new ones, and they're depreciated in value. And I have a law office in San Antonio, and I have a law office in Austin. And I just went through the appraisal process here last year because they told me that my computers that really, in my mind, I told them they're worth $2,000 because they're depreciated over the years. They wanted to value them at $25,000. And so I went through the process. This is a bill that is going to help small businesses all over this state, is it not?
Absolutely. And Senator, that's a process you shouldn't have had to gone through from the fact description you gave, but certainly this $25,000 limit would take you and all small businesses out of that process.
Senator, you may not remember, I was in line and I even called you.
Oh, that's right.
I even called you as it was happening, and you offered to help, and I was so very gracious for that. But small businesses, Governor, are having to deal with this issue across this state on equipment that they have in their offices, out on their yards, Senator Higginbotham. So many things that small businesses are hurting, and small businesses comprise, is it 98% of our workforce? Is that about right?
I think that's a little high, but it's definitely the largest part of job creation in the state.
Well,
the small business provides over half of the job creation in the state. You're absolutely right about that.
These young people are studying comparative government, but they asked me about ad valorem taxes, so I got a recognition out of the way, but I also wanted them to hear what this bill is about, and it's the taxes that businesses pay on the stuff that they have in their offices, in their yard outside, whether it's a construction site or so on, so many things. So I appreciate this bill. You and I have always been on the same page on this, another bipartisan measure.
I'm just shocked here. I mean, bipartisan up here, bipartisan on the bill, and he even helped you. You made a call to a friend, call a friend.
I called a friend.
And he helped you during the interim, save money.
He needed the lifeline, and I gave him some, quick suggestions.
That's it.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, sir.
Any objection to the suspending the rules? Hearing none. The rules suspended. Chair lays out in second reading. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 32. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 32, relating to an exemption from ad valorem taxation of a portion of the appraised value of tangible personal property that is held or used for the production of income and a franchise tax credit for the payment of certain related ad valorem taxes.
This is a nice compliment to raising the homestead exemption to $200,000 for seniors, by the way. So it is a nice compliment for the business side. You're recognized on passage to engrossment.
It absolutely is, Mr. President. And I move passage of engrossment of Senate Bill 32.
Any objection? Hearing none. Bill passes to engrossment. You're recognized to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Bardwell, Blanco.
30 ayes, no nays. The rule suspended. Chair lays out in third reading and final passage. Committee substitute number 32. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 32, relating to an exemption from ad valorem taxation of a portion of the appraised value of tangible personal property that is held or used for production of income.
Businesses have been waiting for this for a long time.
And
Yes, you're recognized on final.
And Mr. President, you remember we had this bill for a long time too. We passed this bill
Many
2 years
times.
ago and maybe before that, et cetera. It only took us 4 years, 4 sessions to get the floor raised to $2,500. And with that, business tax relief for small business and for folks needing an inventory tax credit is on the way. Mr. President, I move final passage of the committee substitute to Senate Bill 32.
Secretary, call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Bardwell.
30 ayes and no nays. Bill is finally passed. I think you have a speaker over there who likes this direction for business.
Well, I think he does, and I think we're going to have a very good chat between all of us and
We'll get
my
this passed
counterpart,
this time.
Yeah, the Chairman Morgan Myers as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Gutierrez, you're recognized for a recognition. Recognized for a recognition.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, members, I just mentioned in this recent exchange with Senator Betancourt, we have some kids from East Central High School, if they can get them to stand up, Jaden, Belinda, Marshall, their teacher, Ms. Tillotson. They are studying comparative politics. They've been studying Russian politics, Iranian politics, and now Texas, because we're just about as big as those economies, I imagine. But U.S. government politics, and they came here to Texas. Their reward was to come here to see how all the sausage gets made here in the state of Texas. Mr. President, you were once their senator. I'm proud to be their senator now. So we thank you for being here. Welcome to your state's capital. Welcome to your Texas Senate. Thank you, members, for indulging me.
Senator Betancourt, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on SJR 81.
It's a good one, Senator Alvarado. This is another chance for the public to vote 83%, 85%, 87% for property tax relief. SJR is the constitutional amendment to authorize increased business personal property tax exemption in SB 32. The voters, if the voters approve in the November election, the legislature may exempt $25,000 of market value from business personal property from taxation. So be happy to answer any questions, but move suspension of the regular order of business for SJR 81.
Senator Betancourt moves suspension of the regular order of business on SJR 81. Is there objection? Hearing none, the rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading SJR 81. The Secretary will read the caption.
SJR 81, proposing a constitutional amendment to authorize the legislature to exempt from ad valorem taxation a portion of the market value of tangible personal property a person owns that is held or used for the production of income.
Senator Betancourt, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage and engrossment of SJR 81.
Senator Betancourt moves passage to engrossment. Is there objection? Hearing none, Bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Betancourt, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
Mr. President, I move to suspend the constitutional rule that bills be read on 3 several days.
Senator Betancourt moves suspension of the 3-day rule. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton.
29 ayes and 1 nays. Rules are suspended. Chair lays out on third reading and final passage of SJR 81. Secretary, read the caption.
SJR 81, proposing a constitutional amendment to authorize the legislature to exempt from ad valorem taxation a portion of the market value of tangible personal property a person owns that is held or used for the production of income.
Senator Betancourt, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I say let the people vote and vote themselves a property tax decrease. So I move final passage of SJR 81.
Senator Betancourt moves final passage of SJR 81. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton.
29 ayes, 1 nay. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President and members.
Senator Alvarado, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 1267.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend the regular order of business to take up and consider Senate Bill 1267. Senate Bill 1267 updates how we handle boat titles in the state. Right now, most of that process is still done by paper, which slows things down and makes it easier for people to commit fraud. This bill allows Texas Parks and Wildlife to move the boating titling system online so it's faster and more efficient. It also shortens the time to file a title application from 45 days to 20 days, which brings in line with rules we already have for car titles. The bill also makes it a criminal offense if someone sells a used boat, and knowingly hides major hull damage. That helps protect buyers from being defrauded and makes sure that damaged boats are not out in the water creating safety risk.
Senator Alvarado moves suspension of the regular order of business on Senate Bill 1267. There is objection. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook.
26 ayes, 4 nays. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading Senate Bill 1267. The Secretary read the caption.
Senate Bill 1267 relating to certificates of number and certificates of title issued by and records kept by the Parks and Wildlife Department.
Senator Alvarado, you are recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Alvarado moves passage to engrossment. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores, Gutierrez, Hagen.
26 ayes, 4 nays. The bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Alvarado, you are recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved, Mr. President.
Senator Alvarado moves suspension of the 3-day rule. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores, Gutierrez, Hagenboom.
Be 26 ayes and 4 nays. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on third reading and final passage of Senate Bill 1267. The Secretary read the caption.
Senate Bill 1267 relating to certificates of number and certificates of title issued by and records kept by the Parks and Wildlife Department.
Senator Alvarado, you are recognized for a motion.
Mr. President, I move final passage of Senate Bill 1267.
Senator Alvarado moves final passage of Senate Bill 1267. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton.
26 ayes, 4 nays. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations, Senator.
Thank you, members, and Mr. President.
Senator Middleton, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 779.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business to take up committee substitute Senate Bill 779. As we have seen across the country, public nuisance laws have been weaponized to sidestep our currently existing regulatory frameworks and impose broad liability on entire industries. These lawsuits go beyond business disputes. They aim to reshape entirely our public policy without legislative input. Left unchecked, this trend could threaten the Texas miracle. Public nuisance law was originally meant to address specific, localized issues like blocked roads, excessive noise, and the remedy was primarily through abatement and criminal penalties. Senate Bill 779 is narrowly focused. It does not impact common nuisance claims, such as those that target stopping prostitution, drug houses, or other types of nuisances. It does not stop private nuisance claims as well, where your property rights are at issue. You can still get damages for interference with your land or your property. What we're concerned with is the use of public nuisance lawsuits to attack lawful businesses engaged in currently regulated activities. Increasingly, it's governments, not private citizens, that are suing companies for damages, not because they broke the law, but because certain activists could not get their policies passed through the legislature. Take California, for example. Lawsuits were filed against Exxon, Shell, Chevron, and others under public nuisance laws, claiming that their fully lawful operations contributed to climate change. These lawsuits are essentially a backdoor way to legislate from the bench, an effort to impose energy policy through litigation and extract massive settlements from our oil and gas industry. It bypasses the EPA, it ignores federal energy laws, and it tramples our constitutional separation of powers. We've also seen public nuisance used in attempts to regulate firearms. Baltimore, for example, recently sued Glock, claiming that its lawfully sold handguns were contributing to criminal activity because they could potentially be illegally modified later. This is like suing a car company for reckless driving. It defies common sense. If we don't act, this kind of legal activism could come to Texas, targeting our most critical industries with lawsuits meant to tax innovation and shut down free enterprise. Senate Bill 779 makes it clear if activity is already authorized or regulated by law, it cannot form the basis of a public nuisance claim. Liability must be determined through the laws we pass, not through opportunistic lawsuits. Members, it's our job, not the courts, to make policy, and that is what the separation of powers is for. Senate Bill 779 defends that principle, protects our Texas economy, and stops the misuse of public nuisance laws before it undermines our rule of law that we passed in this building itself.
Senator Eckhart, for what purpose?
To ask questions of the author.
Senator Middleton, do you yield?
I do yield.
Thank you so much, Senator Middleton. Senator Middleton, it's not your intention at all for this bill to encroach upon the private right to bring a nuisance suit between property owners, correct?
That's correct. It does nothing to interfere with someone's ability to bring that private nuisance right. One of the most famous cases of that, of course, is the Crosstex case, which I know you're aware of, and it would still fully allow someone to bring that cause of action, or landowners to come together to bring that cause of action.
So, of course, a private cause of action requires that the plaintiff have the financial wherewithal to float the cost of that nuisance suit against, in some cases, as in the Crosstex case, against a very, very well-funded defendant, correct?
Not necessarily. This bill does not change current fee structures. In other words, someone could perhaps retain an attorney on a contingency fee basis for a private nuisance claim. The bill doesn't impact that, doesn't stop that, doesn't speak to that. So that's still all possible under this legislation.
So in contrast, a public nuisance action requires that the action involves an unreasonable interference, the nuisance action is an unreasonable interference with the right common to the general public, correct?
Well, so I think you're talking about private nuisance, which is a substantial and unreasonable interference with the use and enjoyment of one's property caused by another, right? So yeah, that's the main gist of private nuisance.
And I'm actually talking about public.
Members, can we have some order and quiet so we can hear the discussion? Thank you.
I'm actually speaking of public nuisance actions. A public nuisance action would require that it be an unreasonable interference that interferes on the general public and affects a considerable part of the community, correct?
Well, so the problem with public nuisance is it doesn't have the elements like other causes of action. You know, Dean Keaton, who I think you knew very well, he actually wrote very wisely that public nuisance is an impenetrable jungle that eludes precise definition, and it was also described as a legal garbage can.
I am aware of that description by Dean Keaton. But if a substantial number of the community are affected by this nuisance, why shouldn't their government be able to give them redress?
So this is about injuries to individuals. I think you're talking about with a private nuisance claim. And so the elements are pretty simple.
Actually, I'm not talking about a private nuisance. I'm talking about public nuisance.
Right. And so you can still bring those individual claims, whether that's under defective products or false advertising under the DTPA.
Again, I'm talking about public nuisance.
Right.
I'm not talking about private nuisance claims. I'm making the distinction between private nuisance claims and public nuisance claims.
Right.
So why shouldn't, if a substantial number of residents in a community, if a substantial number of them are affected by this nuisance, why shouldn't their government be able to bring a public nuisance action?
Well, of course, I think you're talking about an injury, and they have an ability to recover.
Members, if you would, and there in the rail, if you could
and current
hold
common
it down
law,
so we can hear the debate. If you would, members in the rail, if you can hold your discussions, your noise down so we can hear the debate. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. President.
Please proceed.
And you were just speaking that if an individual could pursue an individual nuisance claim, you don't see any reason for there to be a public nuisance claim to address the infringement upon all of the members of the community by the nuisance.
And they can already bring those claims, right, where it's either a defective product, so you can bring it under products liability, as we've seen brought very often, or you could bring it under deceptive advertising, Deceptive Trade Practices Act. You could claim it under that as well. So these are remedies that currently exist under our law today, and that's what this bill aims to do. If you have a current remedy, then bring it under that current remedy.
So you would acknowledge that a substantial number of these public nuisance claims are arising out of the petrochemical industry in the Houston and Galveston area, correct?
Right, and that's the TCEQ, right? And so that's a statutory public nuisance. I should have mentioned that. It's not lawful to pollute. That's not a lawful activity. It's not lawful to dump chemicals in a stream. It's not lawful for, say, a tank battery to overrun and spill into a stream or injure someone's water supply. Those are not lawful activities. So this bill would not apply to that. It's not lawful.
If the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality or a private individual is not pursuing the nuisance, you do not believe that a local governmental entity should be able to pursue the nuisance. Is that the case?
I believe that an individual should be able to recover for damages themselves, the individual.
So you expect the enforcement for environmental laws, for instance, to be on individuals?
No, because some of the activities you've described are unlawful. So that is a proper role of government to bring in action. For example, you have a tank fire, right? Which we saw in Houston. There were a number of issues with that that violated perhaps with state and federal law, right? So under each, you could bring a federal action or a state action as well, right? So those had proper remedies, and those examples, of course, were not legal activities.
So hypothetically speaking, if TCEQ pursues a petrochemical company, and the only statutes through which they can pursue that petrochemical company are permit violations, you don't think, for instance, the Attorney General should be able to pursue claims for nuisance for the damages that are broadly felt?
Well, they can, right? So here's some examples of when we've also changed public policy, right, in regards to public nuisance. We had a bill in, I think, 2019, it may have been 21, I think it's 21, on Critical Infrastructure Disruption Act, right? So we decided as a body that if you're going to block critical infrastructure, which is really a classic definition of a public nuisance, right, as blocking the Kings Road where people lose access to transportation, very broad bill, and we created new criminal penalties for blocking access and where people or companies, individuals lose use to that critical infrastructure, which could be a highway, could be a canal, could be a port, could be a right-of-way, could be all kinds of different things that are critical infrastructure. And it created a criminal penalty and also a new cause of action, right? So you could claim that. So those are the kind of things where this legislature has spoken on that, and it's not appropriate when the legislature has passed a law like that to seek a runaround on it, right? Because our legislative intent was very clear. This is how we want people to recover for these kind of damages that were typically public nuisance. And when a court is seeking other means outside of that, really they're legislating from the bench, and it's a separation of powers issue, because we've made our intent really clear on that that's the method by which we want people to recover. Now, if we don't like it, we can change the law. We just did that in a food additives bill, right, where that's not going to be lawful anymore. We don't want that in our school lunches and other foods. So that's something that really is up to us to speak on. It's really not proper when we're going to the judiciary to get them to essentially fill the role of the legislature when it really should be the legislature's role to begin with.
I'm happy to hear you say that you are a proponent of the separation of powers and co-equal branches of the legislative, the executive, and the courts. But let me ask you this. The legislature only meets every other year. So in the nuisance that you just described, those who are harmed by that nuisance would have to wait until the legislature convenes, decides to pass a bill, and then the bill probably is not retroactive, certainly not retroactive with regard to criminal penalties, correct?
Well, I would say not necessarily, because we had a long committee hearing on this, and not one person could demonstrate that the only way they recovered is because of public nuisance. In other words, there were a lot of other issues claimed in the litigation, and not one person could say, well, I wouldn't have gotten anything but for public nuisance. Not one person could say that, because there were many other elements of many other unlawful activities, DTPA, defective products that they claimed, and were able to recover under that. And we actually had a witness from Harris County, I think it was the attorney's office, and I asked about a per capita recovery, right? So they'd asked, public nuisance was added to pleadings at some point, and they could not say that there was any difference in the per capita recovery from an entity that had not claimed public nuisance and one that had.
Would you agree that often it's in the courts, in the judicial branch, where issues arise that are not yet covered by the law, giving us an opportunity to come back when we do convene and address those issues that have been addressed on a case-by-case basis by the courts?
We come back all the time and legislate all sorts of things, in this body, and Of course, that is up to the legislature to do that, and we can be called back.
The question really goes to, do you believe, well, let me rephrase it. Do you believe it is an activist court that addresses on a case-by-case basis issues of harm under nuisance that are not covered by current state law?
Likely so, yes.
So you believe that that's an activist court, and therefore it is infringing on the rights of the legislature that meets every other year?
I would question why a court would deliberately ignore certain administrative remedies and statutory remedies and go outside of that. Why would they do that?
So can a judge instruct parties to go under a different theory of the case or theory of recovery, or must they take what's presented to them?
They must take what's presented to them, but I want to point out the narrowly tailored jurisdiction of this bill, right? So we're not getting rid of public nuisance in all scenarios. It's only when it's for lawful activities subject to statutory authority or administrative enforcement, and also under products liability. And that's it. That's it. It's very narrowly tailored.
Has Middleton Oil ever been sued under nuisance law?
I don't believe so, no.
That's a remarkable record for Middleton Oil. Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you.
Senator Gutierrez, for what purpose?
Well, the gentleman yield for a few questions.
Senator Middleton,
I do, thank you.
I often write down notes from things that I hear, and I heard you say a couple things. And you said that people could come back over here and ask for redress, right? So, I'm going to give you a fact pattern, and then you can tell me if a Bitcoin, you probably know this better than me, a farm, which is not a farm, it's a building, right? It's got a bunch of servers in there, right?
It's definitely not a farm. Oh, that's for sure. It's not a farm.
What do they call these? A facility, a Bitcoin facility?
Yeah, it's a big, giant suck on our grid,
It's a suck on our grid. I'm glad you mentioned that. And if that facility is licensed and is going well and it's next to Senator Huffman's neighborhood and it's sucking down that grid, and at 10 p.m. every night, the power goes off and Senator Huffman cannot watch her 10 p.m. soap opera or telenovela or news story because the power went off at her house. But they were licensed and they went through all the permitting processes. Does that public nuisance, can she bring redress under your bill?
I sure hope she could maybe bring a private nuisance, and it depends on if you meet the elements, which I can walk them through right now with you.
Please do.
One of them is an ownership or legal right, which she clearly has that. Another one is substantial interference with use and enjoyment. I would say that meets that element as well. Unreasonable discomfort and annoyance, I would say, I don't know if I would cite soap opera, but not having your power on and your food go bad is for sure that. And culpable conduct by a defendant. And I'm hoping that you supported, I believe there's Senator Schwartner's bill with the large load bill, or no, I'm sorry, Senator King's bill, that allows us to better track that, right? Your example with the Bitcoin miners, where we're going to begin tracking these large loads, and we can actually turn them off in order to protect critical circuits and make sure that homeowners' lights stay on in that particular scenario.
Okay, so is your answer that she can absolutely, or someone similarly situated can bring a case in a courtroom, and that's your answer? That's what you're saying?
I believe she can bring a private nuisance claim.
If
Being
a facility,
next door to that.
let me change gears on you, because one of the things you said also was you're not going to be able to the courthouse and you can come here to ask redress from all of us to create changes. And so let's assume on the converse that we have something that is not part of your exemptions. Let's try to go through some of these hypos and we find something that is not within the exemption. If a facility is emitting fumes, odors, or runoff that affects hundreds of residents, and that facility is technically permitted by TCEQ, Texans lose their right to sue under this bill because of the smell.
No, that would be covered under private nuisance.
Okay. What remedy would remain for a rural community facing repeated health impacts from a permitted industrial operation if SB 779 eliminates common law nuisance claims?
Well, we don't eliminate common law nuisance claims. So I think you were talking about common nuisance, right? And common nuisance is the things that are a menace to every community. You know, that's a gambling house, right? Or somewhere that is, has repeated crime, right? Where the remedy to that, of course, is always abatement, always has been. But this bill does not take that away, right? Like a massage parlor that, you know, is operating illegally in a community. These are the things that are still allowed under this bill where, yeah, you can bring that common law nuisance claim, that common nuisance claim, and have that shut down. Of course, the remedy there is abatement. And I think you may be talking about something different, but abatement is the typical remedy in these situations to stop this nuisance.
Okay, how about oil and gas companies? And I'm not interested in anything you have. I'm just oil and gas companies generally that are fracking. And a community as a whole says, we're affected by the fracking because of the seismic activity or something. Is that where this bill seeks to try to come into play?
No, I believe you're talking about Denton, right, where a city actually decided to stop and step in the place of the state and step in the role of an oil and gas regulatory agency and essentially stop, I think it was the Barnett Shale maybe in 2010 maybe or 2008. And we actually just passed legislation last session on that, on fields of regulation. It's not in this bill. It's not in this bill. It's a different issue for a different day.
Listen, I'm not talking.
That was called the Death Star bill.
I'm not talking about Denton. I could be talking about Woebegone, wherever, some fictional city. I'm asking you, is if a community complains about fracking and they want to bring a claim against oil and gas companies for the fracking that's being placed, even though they've licensed and they're permitted properly by TCEQ and any other agency, does your bill protect those entities against that kind of lawsuit?
I believe they could potentially band together and bring a private nuisance claim under ownership, which they have, of course, substantial interference with use and enjoyment, unreasonable discomfort or annoyance, and culpable conduct. I think these things are all possible under that scenario you gave us. Of course, then you drill down a little further to intentional nuisance, negligent nuisance, and the other various elements that are underneath that.
You know, if we have all these exemptions, then why do we need a bill? I'm just trying, maybe you could elucidate us and tell us what kind of industry gets protection from you here.
So this is a proper role of government issue. Basically, if there is an existing method by which to bring a claim, right, whether that's statutory, administrative, or by some other means, then you need to go through that method.
Yeah, you mentioned the DTPA earlier. I'd highly doubt that anybody in the fact patterns that I suggested would have a deceptive trade practices claim against anybody, because you have to be a consumer of that particular product, right?
Right, DTPA, yes, you have to be a consumer and it applies to the individual, and of course there are various elements of that, but that is how, for example, that or one of the examples that there's been recoveries.
And I guess, and maybe you don't have to answer it. Maybe it's my job to investigate it. What I asked you a second ago was, can you give me an industry that is protected by the passing of this bill? Give us a fact scenario of your own.
Okay, well, I'll give you an example. For example, Hyundai, right? They were sued, saying their cars were too easy to break into. Well, maybe the problem there was actually not fully funding law enforcement. Or here's another one. One of the soda companies, Pepsi, was sued for river litter. Well, maybe the proper answer is actually enforcing our litter laws, right? So these are real world examples that have happened where they've improperly sought damages when really what they should have been doing is fixing the root of the problem. In that case, it was litter. In that case, it was auto theft, right? So that was the root issue in both of those.
I guess my point is, and I think Senator Eckhart, and I can't speak for her, is that we have a judiciary. You're a lawyer. The law is always changing, correct?
It's always changing.
Pardon me?
Only every other year, but yes.
No.
Unless we're in a special session.
No. How does it also change? Through
administrative law, of course.
No. How does it change through the judiciary process? Through
common law, there's common law.
Common law,
yeah.
Well, yeah, there's precedent, right?
Yeah.
And we establish precedent. We have law that we pass in here, and then we have precedent that's passed in our courts through the appellate process, through our Texas Supreme Court and our United States Supreme Court. And those laws are also, they get created through precedent, those protections. My point is that the law is always changing and it's always fluid. And here's the last thing that I'm going to tell you, or I'm going to suggest to you. Communities, because we still haven't figured out the hypo where a community gets protected or not protected by this bill. So let's assume whatever it is. If I have a community of people in Alpine, well, that's not my district anymore. Marathon, sorry. Brewster County is the luckiest state in the world to have two handsome young men representing them. How about that? Here's the deal. In Marathon, Texas, if that community gets affected by somebody, how do they get redress under this bill? You're saying they come to us?
No, they would have an individual cause of action, or they could band together under
Let's assume they didn't have a cause of action individually. Let's assume they didn't fall within your exemptions. Your other answer was that they have to come to us, right?
Well, so you're saying they don't have a cause of action, but they need to get paid
No,
damages.
they have a cause of action, but they don't fall within your exceptions here. In other words, they're not a private cause of action. And so let's assume that they don't get that they're not subject to the protections under some other remedy. And so you told Senator Eckhart earlier that they would have to come into this building to get redress from us, right?
No, that is not the case. That is not the case. What I was saying, and the example I was giving, is that if the laws need to change, then they need to change here. We don't need to have a patchwork between all of our appellate courts and all of our district courts. You can still get recovery for your individual damages, but what you just said is that they can't bring an action individually because they have no cause of action, but somehow they should still get damages, and that doesn't make sense.
Oh, and I corrected myself, and I assumed that they had a cause of action, but but your bill protected the tortfeasor.
It does not.
Well, how do you know? You haven't even yet given us an example of who your tortfeasor is. I don't know. I don't even know the necessity of this bill because you have yet to tell us anything other than Hyundai.
You've got a lot of examples. I cited the gun company earlier.
And so, to my point, how are those people supposed to get redress from the legislature? And I'm not going to get into your other pieces of legislation, but they won't even be able to come in with their lobbyist, right? Because they won't be able to get one. Mr. President, I have no further questions.
Senator West, for what purpose? A couple of questions of the author.
Senator Middleton, do you yield?
I do, thank you.
Senator Middleton, I'd like to direct your attention to page 1, line 47. Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
Okay, and that particular section right there basically says pretty much, and we're dealing with public nuisance, it pretty much states that product or claim based on the manufacturing, distribution, selling, labeling, or marketing of a product, regardless of whether the product is defective, you're not able to bring a claim, a public nuisance claim. Is that correct?
The point of it is that you can bring a products liability claim with the very well-determined elements under Section 82 of the Civil Practices and Remedies Code that we have passed in this chamber and that this body has decided is the proper way to meet that test to recover damages.
Your section on line 34, limitations on common law public nuisance claims. Is that what that section states?
Yes, on section, I believe you're reading 100C.02, I think that's what you're reading.
And one of the subsections is subsection 3 that deals with these types of claims, right? The marketing, marketing, distribution, selling, labeling, or you prohibit those claims under that particular section, do you not?
They're not prohibiting recovery for damages and defective
That's not what I asked
products.
you, sir. That's not what I asked you.
Under public nuisance, correct, and as we heard in committee.
Okay, so what is the purpose of that subsection under this particular section, section 100C.002? What does that do to matters covered by subsection 3?
So essentially what the bill does, and it goes to its intent, is that when you have an ability to recover from these damages under existing statutory law, existing administrative law, or by some other means.
Out of all due respect, I'm not asking you that question. Maybe let me ask the question this way. I'm just asking specifically about this subsection. That's the only subsection I'm asking about, sir. And so I'm trying to understand what the purpose of this subsection is when you say that the section that this is under is entitled Limitations on Common Law Public Nuisance Claims. It would seem as though that if a claim falls under subsection 3, it's prohibited by this section. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Only under public nuisance. You may still recover damages for all of these things described in here.
Under public nuisance.
Only.
All right, so help me, what is a public nuisance?
So public nuisance is an impenetrable jungle, and it's basically a garbage can of a legal claim where we see this as kind of thrown in as a catch-all at the end. And really, the way people are recovering is with existing elements, right? With
could you slow down a little bit? I don't understand. What are the elements of a common nuisance?
So common nuisance is actually different. That's actually what I referenced earlier with Senator Gutierrez. And that covers things that need to be abated that are, a threat to health and safety. For example, there's a drug house being run out of something. I believe that's been brought before with a homeless shelter, for example, that has kind of gotten out of control next to a school. That was in committee the other day. I believe we had that example in the Education Committee. So those are some of the examples of common nuisance where you sue in order to abate the behavior that is harming neighbors, harming the community in order to stop it, right? So that is a remedy that still exists under this bill. This bill does not take that away. It doesn't touch that at all.
But, okay, so you're saying that a common nuisance is something that adversely impacts the community?
Yeah, here's some more examples. Graffiti, obscenity, gambling, delivery of controlled substances, organized criminal activity.
Would you agree with me that opioids and the distribution of opioids would be prohibited? Someone filing a claim, a county or a public entity being able to file a claim as it relates to opioids?
They could be, and there were a number of claims.
It could be? What do you mean when you say it could be? I need you to be more specific since this is a law going into effect. I need more specificity.
Okay, so the way the opioid litigation worked is there were some political subdivisions of the state that didn't plead public nuisance. They pled other matters that were not related to that. And we heard in committee from the Harris County Attorney's Office, I believe it was the Attorney's Office, that, and I asked a question, was there a difference in the recovery between those that pled public nuisance on the opioid litigation and those that did not?
And
they said, no, I don't think so.
Okay, but here's the deal.
I don't know, is what they said.
But your bill would prohibit the pleading by a county or any other political subdivision pleading a common nuisance. Specifically, if it's like an opioid distribution issue, would it not?
They can still plead common nuisance, they cannot public. So, difference there.
Public nuisance.
Yeah.
You would prohibit that.
It would be prohibited as a cause of action.
How's that good policy? How's that good state policy to sit up and say that if we had an opioid problem, that a political subdivision should not be able to plead a public nuisance or claim a public nuisance? How's that good policy,
Well,
sir?
I would like one example, just one, only one, and no one's ever been able to produce this, of where someone has only, county, city, or someone else, has only been able to recover under a claim for public nuisance, and nobody can produce that.
Well, you know what?
Nobody can produce that.
Well, here's the situation. I want you to really think about this. Just because no one has provided you an example should not be the reason why you prohibit someone from filing a public nuisance, especially an example I'm giving you is opioids. And you know exactly what opioids did. And I'm surely you don't want someone to be able to not file a public nuisance based on distribution of opioids or anything similar to it, would you? You don't want that to happen.
And with opioids, we know they hid the addiction risk. They took all sorts of bad actions, and there was a large recovery because of it. The same with tobacco. I'll never forget seeing the library.
You know
UTMB has a medical library.
I was getting ready to go to tobacco right after opioids. So, your bill, though, sir. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong about this. The way I'm reading this is that your bill says, members, you need to look at this. Your bill says on line 34, limitations on common law public nuisance claims. One of those limitations deals specifically with tobacco, filing a public nuisance claim like on tobacco, opioids, and things of that nature. Would your bill prohibit the filing of such a claim under public nuisance?
Tobacco was a long time ago, and if they pled public nuisance, it was incidental, and here's why they won big.
No, that's not the question I asked. That is not the question I asked, sir, out of all due respect. Out of all due respect, I'm asking you, would your bill prohibit the filing of such a claim under this particular subsection?
Under public nuisance only, and of course...
So it would prevent?
Of course, people can still recover under products liability, which was a tobacco
So your
claim.
bill would produce it?
Deceptive acts. I mean, these were deceptive acts. They had literature...
Okay, so as long as people understand what they're voting on, that's fine.
Deceptive acts saying cigarettes are good for you.
Out of all due respect, sir, your bill would prohibit the filing of such a claim. That's all I asked. Now, as an attorney, people always file alternative causes of actions. But what you're doing is taking away being able to file this as a cause of action. Surely that's not what you want to do. I mean, there's been cases where I've filed 50 million different causes of action, sir, in alternative, okay? But what you're doing here is saying that in instances of that are real important to the public, you're preventing those claims to be filed under this particular cause of action. That's all I'm saying. And you've already admitted that that's exactly what this does. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator West. I don't think I want to read your petitions if there are 50 million causes of action in there, because they'd be quite long, a Senator Royce West petition,
Okay, you don't have to read them, but I'm reading this particular bill that if it passes, you're limiting the filing of public claims. Public nuisance, like opioids. That's what you're doing here, sir. And surely that's not what you really want to do. I understand what you're trying to do, but doing this is not the right way to get to it, and it's bad public policy, out of all due respect.
Senator Middleton moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 779. There is objection. The secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Echo.
17 ayes, 12 nays. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute for Senate Bill 779. Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 779 relating to common law public nuisance claims.
Senator Middleton, you recognize for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Middleton moves passage to engrossment. There is objection. The secretary will call the roll.
I'll get it. Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton.
17 ayes, 12 nays. Bill is passed to engrossment, and we will hold there. Senator Hughes, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 1470.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move suspension of the Senate's regular order of business so that we can take up and consider at this time Senate Bill 1470. Senators, this bill is about driver license data for voter list maintenance. It's a very simple bill to allow the Secretary of State to obtain data from the Department of Public Safety regarding cross-state moves. It does not create any new data collection efforts. It just requires agency to share data that they already have. When someone moves to a new state, they likely obtain a new driver license reflecting the new residence. In most cases, the new state sends a notification to DPS that the person has moved so that DPS can cancel their Texas driver license. It's very good, possibly the best data available for cross-state moves, and it's already in the state agency. This bill would instruct DPS to share this data with the Secretary of State so she can use it for list maintenance purposes. It does not alter the current law on removing voters from the rolls. It just gives another piece of data for the Secretary to use. Neither the Secretary of State nor DPS told us they thought this bill would be difficult to implement. That's what the straightforward bill does, and I move suspension.
Senator Hughes moves suspension on the regular order of business on Senate Bill 1470. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook.
21 ayes, 9 nays. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading Senate Bill 1470. Secretary will read the caption.
Senate Bill 1470 relating to requiring the Department of Public Safety to share data for the purpose of maintaining the statewide voter registration list.
Senator Hughes, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Hughes moves passage to engrossment. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores.
21 ayes, 9 nays. The bill is passed to engrossment and will hold there.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members.
Senator Paxton, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 2406.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I move to suspend the regular order of business and take up and consider Senate Bill 2406. Senate Bill 2406 is the sunset bill for the Sabine River Authority of Texas. Overall, the Sunset Commission found the SRA to be a well-run organization in a solid financial position to meet the water needs of its basin. Senate Bill 2406 consists of the Sunset Commission's recommendations for the Sabine River Authority. To apply the Sunset Commission standard across-the-board recommendations and to extend SRA's sunset review date by 12 years to 2037. I move to suspend.
Senator Paxton moves suspension of the regular order of business on Senate Bill 2406. Is there objection? Hearing none, rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading Senate Bill 2406. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 2406 relating to the Sabine River Authority of Texas.
Senator Paxton recognized for a motion.
I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Paxton moves passage to engrossment. Is there objection? Hearing none, bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Paxton, you recognize for a motion to suspend the constitutional three-day rule.
So moved.
Senator Paxton moves suspension of the three-day rule. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Bardwell, Blanco, Campbell.
30 ayes, 0 nays. Rules are suspended. Chair lays out on third reading and final passage of Senate Bill 2406. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 2406 relating to the Sabine River Authority of Texas.
Senator Paxton, you recognize for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move final passage.
Senator Paxton moves final passage of Senate Bill 2406. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Bardwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members.
Senator Sparks, you recognize for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 2407.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I move at this time to suspend the regular order of business in order to take up and consider Senate Bill 2407. Members, this is another River Authority bill. The Lower Neches Valley River Authority, created in 1933, manages storm and floodwaters in the Neches River Basin and addresses water needs for the Beaumont-Port Arthur area, covering Hardin, Jefferson, Tyler, parts of Chambers, and Liberty counties. In 2024, the Sunset Advisory Commission reviewed LNVA's operations and recommended several governance improvements to enhance transparency, accountability, and efficiency. Senate Bill 2407 puts those recommendations into legislative action by establishing a governor-appointed board president, separating the board's policymaking from staff management, setting clear grounds for removing board members. It also ensures public involvement with testimony opportunities at meetings and a system to handle and track complaints. These updates will help build public trust and ensure that LNVA remains focused on its mission of managing the region's water resources effectively and equitably. Many of those recommendations align with River Authority's best practices compiled by the Sunset Advisory Commission. With that, Mr. President, I move suspension.
Senator Sparks moves suspension of the regular order of business on Senate Bill 2407. Is there objection? Hearing none, rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading Senate Bill 2407. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 2407 relating to the Lower Neches Valley Authority.
Senator Sparks, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Sparks moves passage to engrossment. Is there objection? Hearing none, bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Sparks, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional three-day rule.
Thank you. So moved.
Senator Sparks moves suspension of the three-day rule. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Bardwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook.
There will be 30 ayes, 0 nays. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on third reading and final passage Senate Bill 2407. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 2407 relating to the Lower Neches Valley Authority.
Senator Sparks, are recognized for a motion.
I move final passage of Senate Bill 2407.
Senator Sparks moves final passage of Senate Bill 2407. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Bardwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Senator Paxton, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 609.
Thank you, Mr. President. So moved.
Senator Paxton moves suspension of the regular order of business on Senate Bill 609. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook,
23 ayes, 7 nays. The rules are suspended. The chair lays out on third reading and final passage Senate Bill 609. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 609, relating to requiring independent school districts, home rule school districts, and open enrollment charter schools to comply with legally required policies.
Senator Paxton, recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move final passage.
Senator Paxton moves final passage Senate Bill 609. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton.
23 ayes, 7 nays. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Senator Sparks, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 921.
So moved.
Senator Sparks moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 921. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook.
19 ayes, 11 nays. The rules are suspended. The chair lays out on third reading and final passage of a committee substitute for Senate Bill 921. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute, Senate Bill 921, relating to conducting an ex parte renewal of a recipient's Medicaid eligibility.
Senator Sparks, you're recognized for a motion.
I move final passage. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I move final passage of committee substitute 921.
Senator Sparks moves final passage of committee substitute for Senate Bill 921. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton.
Be 19 ayes, 11 nays. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Senator Hancock is recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 2320.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I am actually laying out this bill today on behalf of our colleague and friend, Senator King. Senate Bill 2320 amends the penal code to enhance penalties for all DWI offenses, including first-time offenses, offenses with an open container present in the vehicle, offenses where the driver's alcohol level was over 0.15 or more, and repeat offenses. We know that since 2013 to 2022, there's been approximately 110,000 fatalities in the United States due to intoxicated driver, which is what this bill hopes to have an impact on. I know during the committee hearing that one of the Fort Worth residents was able to testify. And Lauren McElroy, a mom from Fort Worth, she shared her story and testimony about an incident that really cut into the heart of Fort Worth and Tarrant County because of this beloved family. On November 22nd, 2023, Lauren and her husband, Zach, their 12-year-old son, Judson, and 9-year-old daughter, Lindsay, were driving from Fort Worth to Johnson City simply to celebrate Thanksgiving holiday with family. Tragically, they never arrived. A vehicle driven by a drunk driver crossed the median on Highway 281 and collided head-on with Lauren and her family. Lauren was seriously injured and was airlifted to Seton Medical Center in Austin. Unfortunately, Zach, Judson, Lindsay did not survive. 3 months later, Lauren learned that the driver of the other vehicle had a blood alcohol content of 0.261, which is more than 3 times the legal limit in Texas. Lauren lost on that day her entire family in just a moment. Her children will never have the chance to attend prom, go to college, or get married. And this tragedy was not a random act, but was reckless and dangerous behavior. Members, we owe it to Lauren and the countless other victims of drunk driving to ensure that our roads are safe and free from preventable accidents. The consequences of driving while intoxicated endanger the lives of every person on the road, and too many Texans have become victims of this danger. This bill is about protecting children, grandchildren, and loved ones from these needless accidents. And with that, I move suspension.
Senator Hancock moves suspension of the regular order of business on Senate Bill 2320. Is there objection? Hearing none, rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading Senate Bill 2320. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 2320 relating to increasing the criminal punishment for certain driving while intoxicated offenses.
Senator Hancock, you're recognized for a motion.
I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Hancock moves passage to engrossment. Is there objection? Hearing none, bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Hancock, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
Mr. President, I move to suspend the rule that bills be read on 3 several days.
Senator Hancock moves suspension of the 3-day rule. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton.
28 ayes, 2 nays. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on third reading and final passage of Senate Bill 2320. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 2320 relating to increasing the criminal punishment for certain driving while intoxicated offenses.
Senator Hancock, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move final passage.
Senator Hancock moves final passage of Senate Bill 2320. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook.
28 ayes, 2 nays. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations. Senator Johnson, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 1822.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the regular order of business to take up and consider the committee substitute to Senate Bill 1822, which regards algorithm-based artificial intelligence in utilization reviews in insurers. Senate Bill 1822 would require issuers of health policies to publicly disclose the use of their AI-based algorithms in utilization reviews and to provide notice to the insured or enrolled individuals. It would also require issues and utilization review agents for the insurers to submit a compliance statement disclosing certain characteristics of their artificial intelligence-based algorithms, disclosing things including, among others, the use, the scope, and the function of artificial intelligence in the utilization reviews, the logic or the decision tree of the AI-based algorithm used for utilization reviews, a description of the training data set used by AI-based algorithms for utilization reviews, compliance of training requirements for algorithms that minimize the risk of bias and comply with the evidence-based clinical guidelines, finally, a description of the issuer's or agent's oversight and validation process of the performance and the compliance for the AI-based algorithm. Members, I've worked with insurers as well as patient advocates, technology people to make sure that this bill strikes the right balance. We believe that it does, and therefore I move to suspend the regular order of business.
Senator Johnson moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 1822. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Bardwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores.
There be 24 ayes and 6 nays. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute for Senate Bill 1822. The Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 1822 relating to the use of artificial intelligence-based algorithms and utilization review conducted for certain health benefit plans.
Senator Johnson, recognized for a motion.
I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Johnson moves passage to engrossment. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Bardwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores.
There be 24 ayes and 6 nays. The bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Johnson, you recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved.
Senator Johnson moves suspension of the 3-day rule. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Bardwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores, Gutierrez.
There be 24 ayes and 6 nays. The rules are suspended. The chair lays out on third reading and final passage of committee substitute for Senate Bill 1822. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 1822 relating to the use of artificial intelligence-based algorithms in certain utilization reviews.
Senator Johnson, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move final passage of the committee substitute to Senate Bill 1822.
Senator Johnson moves final passage of committee substitute for Senate Bill 1822. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Bardwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores.
There be 24 ayes and 6 nays. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President,
Senator.
members, and I appreciate the decisive gaveling in this instance.
Senator West, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 693.
Mr. President and members, I move to suspend the regular order of business at this time to take up and consider Senate Bill 693. Senate Bill 693 protects Texas homeowners from deed theft by creating a Class A misdemeanor for knowingly using a notary seal on a fraudulent document. I can go into as much detail as you need, but that's what this particular bill does.
Senator West moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 693. Is there objection? Hearing none, rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute for Senate Bill 693. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute, Senate Bill 693, relating to notaries public.
There is an amendment. Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 1 by West.
Senator West, you're recognized on the amendment.
Mr. President, members, this is a language change that was requested by the Secretary of State. This language change is made at their request, and frankly, substitutes the language and allow the Secretary of State to charge a reasonable price for each course. That's what it does.
Members, the question is on the adoption of floor amendment number 1. It is acceptable to the author. Is there any objection? Hearing none, amendment is adopted. Senator West, you're recognized for a motion.
Move passage to engrossment.
Senator West moves passage to engrossment. Is there objection? Hearing none, bill is passed to engrossment. Senator West, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So move.
Senator West moves suspension of the 3-day rule. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
29 ayes, 1 nays. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on third reading and final passage committee substitute for Senate Bill 693. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute, Senate Bill 693, relating to notaries public.
Senator West, you're recognized for a motion.
Mr. President, I move final passage of committee substitute Senate Bill 693.
Senator West moves final passage of committee substitute for Senate Bill 693. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
29 ayes, 1 nay. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations, Senator. Senator Huffman, you recognize for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 664.
Thank you, Mr. President, members. At this time, I move to suspend the regular order of business to take up and consider the committee substitute Senate Bill 664. Members, a magistrate in Texas is a judicial officer who presides over certain criminal cases and some civil actions, but is primarily tasked with setting bail in most counties. Under Chapter 54 of the Government Code, 25 different counties have their own qualification standards, hiring and firing processes, jurisdictional powers, and other governing statutes for their local magistrates. In order to create uniformity for these unelected officials, the committee substitute for Senate Bill 664 adds statewide qualifications for magistrates, including being a resident of the state and county in which he or she is appointed, being licensed to practice law in the state and in good standing with the state bar, to have not been defeated in the most recent judicial election, and to have been removed from office or reassigned in lieu of removal from office. The committee substitute also reiterates that magistrates must remain up to date on required training regarding bail. To ensure proper oversight and accountability, the committee substitute clarifies that Chapter 54 magistrates' eligibility for certain removal provisions through the State Commission on Judicial Conduct and directs the local administrative judge to have oversight over the magistrate. Also, based on recommendations from the Texas Judicial Council, the committee substitute adds similar law license requirements in Chapter 54A for associate judges. This bill is enacting statewide standards, but it does not prevent counties from implementing additional provisions as they see fit. We know that magistrates are making making decisions that potentially have an impact on public safety, so we're trying to ensure that they have the qualifications necessary to make these extremely important decisions. I move suspension, Mr. President.
Senator Huffman moves suspension of regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 664. Is there objection? Hearing none, rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute for Senate Bill 664. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 664 relating to qualifications, training, removal, and supervision of certain masters, magistrates, referees, associate judges, and hearing officers.
Senator Huffman recognized for a motion.
I move passage to engrossment, the committee substitute Senate Bill 664.
Senator Huffman moves passage to engrossment. Is there an objection? Hearing none, bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Huffman, you recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved.
Senator Huffman moves suspension of the 3-day rule. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Bardwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The rules are suspended. The chair lays out on third reading final passage of committee substitute Senate Bill 664. Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 664 relating to qualifications, training, removal, and supervision of certain masters, magistrates, referees, associate judges, and hearing officers.
Senator Huffman recognized for a motion.
Move final passage of the committee substitute Senate Bill 664.
Senator Huffman moves final passage. Committee substitute Senate Bill 664. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Bardwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations, Senator.
Sir, thank you.
Senator Middleton, you recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 1008.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business, take up and consider committee substitute for Senate Bill 1008. Members, as we know, restaurants are small businesses in every community. Actually, about 90% of restaurants are considered small businesses, and they're the backbone of literally, whether it's urban, rural, panhandle to the coast. Every single community relies on those small businesses, and they have had a very tough time in the past 5 years, whether that's COVID or the inflation that they're being faced with currently. And look, they don't have a legal department, they don't have an HR department, and they're always constantly trying to stay on top of red tape and regulations from about 200 different governmental bodies while operating on very, very thin margins that are getting thinner and thinner. SB 1008 can help these businesses focus on what matters, food safety, while saving time and money along the way. Regulatory consistency is crucial in providing transparent, predictable rules and guidelines for citizens and business owners throughout our state. And restaurants, frankly, face a complicated patchwork of regulations because there are over 200 regulators. This can take a very, very difficult situation and make it even harder for them to keep up with when they're facing potential closure. And frankly, last session we attempted to address this with Senate Bill 577 by Senator Springer. It's a bipartisan bill. Unfortunately, some cities and counties have argued that because they are not public health districts, certain loopholes still exist, and parts of that bill have not been enacted because of it. Senate Bill 1008 clarifies that all local governments must stop collecting food and local alcohol fees from single food service businesses, and also clarifies that no local government can require a food manager to pay a local fee or get a local permit when they are already certified by the state. This bill creates an enforcement mechanism so that if a local government violates state laws related to food service permitting, inspection, or other similar regulations, then the industry may seek injunctive relief, not financial damages, but injunctive relief to address that conflict. Senate Bill 1008 puts some cost controls in place by stating that local food service permits and fees are capped, and addresses duplicative permits and fees by providing a sound permit for restaurants that are simply accepting deliveries or playing music on their patio within very reasonable limits and hours. With that, I move suspension.
Senator Middleton moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 1008. Is there objection? Hearing none, rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading, committee substitute for Senate Bill 1008. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute, Senate Bill 1008, relating to state and local authority to regulate the food service industry.
There is an amendment. Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 1 by Middleton.
Senator Middleton to explain the amendment.
Mr. President, members, this is a perfecting amendment that we've drafted with various stakeholders, and it does 3 different things. It clarifies that the fee language to ensure local health departments can assess the maximum fees on an annual basis. Number 2, it fixes a population bracket to clarify that the largest counties can assess up to 120%, so that's 20% more than the maximum state fee as we've negotiated amongst the stakeholders. And it clarifies that when licensed restaurants cater to a workplace, the businesses at that workplace do not also have to have a food permit. And I move adoption of the amendment.
Question on the adoption of the amendment at floor number 1. Is there any objection? Hearing none, amendment is adopted. Senator Middleton, you recognize for a motion.
Mr. President, I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Middleton moves passage to engrossment. Is there objection? Hearing none, bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Middleton, you recognize for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved, Mr. President.
Senator Middleton moves suspension of the 3-day rule. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
29 ayes, 1 nays. Rule is suspended. Chair lays out on third reading and final passage of committee substitute for Senate Bill 1008. Senator Middleton, the Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute, Senate Bill 1008, relating to state and local authority to regulate the food service industry.
Senator Middleton, you recognize for a motion.
Move final passage.
Senator Middleton moves final passage of committee substitute for Senate Bill 1000. Senator Eckhardt, for what purpose?
Speak against the bill, please.
You're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. And I am sorry I didn't get out here fast enough to ask questions of the author. But I wanted to alert the chamber and my fellow members to the effect of this bill. Counties, municipalities, and healthcare districts are distinct, and they have different authorities, and they have different jurisdictions. And to block one authority from regulating food establishments because another authority has already done it with their different jurisdiction, their different authorities, is to prevent our local governmental entities from acting in coordination to make sure that we don't have public health threats. Let me give you an example. There is a club in eastern Travis County. It starts out as a food establishment, serving basically bar food, but no alcohol, because everybody is BYOBing in the parking lot. They get their permit from the city because they're inside the ETJ. But the county says, oh my God, they're gonna come for a liquor license, and we've got so many DWIs coming out of this parking lot, so many fist fights coming out of this parking lot. There are open cans from their grease trap in the back. We've got to be able to regulate this place. But they can't under this law because the city has already given them a food permit. Let me give you another example. You got a food truck that's out in the county, a food truck that serves coffee in the morning and tacos. It's hugely popular. It's out in the county. The county gives them a permit because they're out on a state highway and people back up in the mornings to get their coffee and their breakfast taco, but it's not a problem because there's plenty of places for them to park. But the food truck gets so popular that it moves into the city limits, onto a corner that doesn't have any parking, that obstructs traffic in the mornings when this extremely popular food truck with its tacos and coffee are sought after by all of the commuters. There's major traffic conflict, and they too are pouring their grease trap grease into open cans behind the building, which causes a rancorous stink if you've ever smelled grease trap, a dirty grease trap before. But the city can't regulate this food truck that got their permit from the county 3 months ago, but then moved their truck into the city to a spot that has problems. These are the very kind of issues you want your county, your city, and your health department to be managing collectively. These are, dare I say it, nuisances that your community is going to be suffering with because of the traffic conflicts, because of the odor, because of late night sound at that restaurant that turned into a bar out there in the ETJ. But this bill hampers the local entities' abilities to regulate these activities. This is not about streamlining. It's not about efficiency. It's about limiting the coordination of local governments to address legitimate concerns that go all the way from smell to real public safety concerns. And I would urge you to vote against this bill.
Senator Middleton, you're recognized on final passage.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move final passage.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Cordova, Blanco.
29 ayes, only 1 nay. The bill's finally passed. Thank you. Mr. Doorkeeper.
Mr. President, there's a message from the House.
Admit the messenger.
Mr. President, I am directed by the House to inform the Senate that the House has taken.
Thank you. Senator Huffman, you are recognized to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 1637 by Senator King.
Yes.
You're laying it out for him.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I move to suspend the regular order of business, take up and consider the committee substitute to Senate Bill 1637. Members, as you know, Senator King is out because of a very...
Members, a lot of chatter going on the floor.
Senator King is out because of a death in his family, so I'm very pleased to be able to present this bill on behalf of Senator King. Members, Senate Bill 1637, the committee substitute, amends the deadly conduct statute to ensure the presumption of recklessness established in the statute does not apply to peace officers in the discharge of their official duties. Senate Bill 1637 also clarifies that the offense of discharging a firearm at one or more individuals under the deadly conduct statute does not apply to peace officers engaged in the actual discharge of their official duties. The charge of deadly conduct was never intended to be used against a peace officer performing his or her duties. The statute passed in the 1970s to give prosecutors an additional tool to combat rising gang violence. That's what it was designed for, not to prosecute peace officers. The bill does not prevent application of the statute to a peace officer acting outside the course of their duties. Members, this bill did pass out of the Criminal Justice Committee unanimously, and Senator King and myself are hoping for your support. So I move to suspend the regular order of business.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
23 ayes, 7 nays. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute for Senate Bill 1637. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute, Senate Bill 1637, relating to the prosecution of the offense of deadly conduct.
Following amendment, Secretary will read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 1 by Alvarado.
Hold on, members. We want to get the amendment to you.
Yeah, it's a good amendment.
Senator Alvarado, on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment replaces actual discharge with lawful discharge to better align with the language used in offenses in Chapter 22 of the Texas Penal Code. It will ensure that this bill will only apply to an officer who is doing their job lawfully, and I believe it is acceptable to the author, or Senator Huffman.
Senator Huffman?
Yes, it is acceptable to Senator King, and acceptable to me as well.
Any objection? Hearing none. Amendment is adopted. You now recognize passage to engrossment.
I move passage to engrossment of the committee substitute to Senate Bill 1637.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
27 ayes, 3 nays. The bill's passed to engrossment. You recognize suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved, Mr. President.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton.
27 ayes, 3 nays. Rule suspended. Chair lays out third reading and final passage. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1637. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute, Senate Bill 1637, relating to the prosecution of the offense of deadly conduct.
You are recognized on final passage.
Move final passage. The committee substitute Senate Bill 1637.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell.
27 ayes, 3 nays. The bill's finally passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator King, thanks you.
Senator Schwertner, you're recognized on committee substitute for Senate Bill 458. Suspend the regular order of business.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business, take up and consider at this time Senate Bill 458. Members, appraisals in residential and personal automobile policies have long been the status quo. However, some companies in Texas have attempted to remove these clauses from their policies, with one having successfully done so in 2015. Without clear statutory requirements, the Texas Department of Insurance does not have the authority to mandate access to appraisal in personal insurance policies filed with the agency. This bill, Senate Bill 458, seeks to preserve the right of an appraisal provision for insurance policies, requiring insurers to offer it in personal home and auto coverage. The bill is a big step toward ensuring that Texans have the necessary tools at their disposal to protect against paying exorbitant out-of-pocket costs or taking on the time-consuming and financial cost of going to court. Thank you, members. I move suspension of the regular order of business. Take up and consider.
Senator Gutierrez, what purpose?
Just a few questions.
Do you yield?
I yield. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Schwertner. This is a pro-consumer piece of legislation, is it not?
It is.
And it's in large part because of the rising cost of auto insurance that our consumers are facing, and home insurance as well, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, well, I think you've got a good bill. I have a couple of amendments to try to make it a little bit better, but I think it's worth a discussion.
I'll be happy to discuss them with you, Senator. I look forward to getting this bill passed, yes.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm with you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Schwertner, any objection to the motion being suspended? Hearing none. Motion is suspended. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out second reading. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 458. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute, Senate Bill 458, relating to an appraisal process for disputed losses under personal automobile or residential property insurance policies.
Members, we have the following amendment. Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 1 by Gutierrez.
You recognize on your amendment, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this is a cap, if you will, and whether the amendment goes on or not, it's worth the discussion. Right now, we have insurance companies that are woefully underappraising loss to the consumers. And so what this bill would do would direct the Texas Commission on Insurance to not allow an insurance company to underappraise that loss. And so this would set a cap on the subsequent year's premium if an insurer received an appraisal that was greater than 25% of the actual loss. Logistically, admittedly, a little difficult for the commission to figure this out, but that's why they are the commission. So I'm making my argument against myself not to help Senator Schwertner. I think his bill is a good bill. I think an amendment like this makes it even better. And I think that the Insurance Commission needs to hold these insurance companies accountable for failing to provide adequate insurance risk assessments on loss to their clients and to our constituents. And so I hope that it would be acceptable to the author.
Senator Menendez, what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. President. Questions of the author of the amendment, Mr. President?
Do you yield?
Yes, sir, I do.
Senator Gutierrez, I'm reading just saw your amendment for the first time. The line that I like the best, right here, 17, premium increase restrictions related to appraisal outcomes. So if I read this correctly, at the end of the day, what you're trying to make sure is that regardless of what happens, our constituents don't get an increase on their annual premium for their car or property by more than 10% if something like this occurs. Is that what you're trying to do, is limit the increase on our constituents' premiums, annual increase?
So you're absolutely right, Senator. What's happening is The insurance company is doing what they always do, and their rule number one starts with the letter D, and it's deny, 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 deny coverage. And then what they come back and do is limit the coverage. So if you've got a $100,000 loss on a house, they're going to pay you $75,000. If you got a $20,000 loss on your car, they're going to pay you $12,000. Then they're going to go over, if it's on your car, they're going to go over to the auto body shop, and we've tried to address this before. They're going to say, use aftermarket parts. Don't use the stuff that GM wants you to use. Use this other stuff.
Right.
Don't fix that car properly. Put some Bondo on it. And those types of activities are happening every day to our constituents.
Right.
And so then what happens is, then the client is left with this option. Well, do I take part of the relief, or do I have to go and sue them and do all these other things that most people don't have the resources to do, so they end up taking the lower relief that was suggested to them by the insurance company, even though it may not be enough to fulfill the obligations to pay for their roof. And so then the subsequent year, what does the insurance do? They'll tell you, well, you had a claim on your house, and we're going to raise your premiums by 25%.
Correct.
I don't understand this business anymore. It began as a group of people trying to fix someone's ailment. In 1900s, somebody had cancer. A bunch of people pulled their money together to help somebody out. Associations then started stepping in and saying, we're going to pool our money together. Trade unions started saying, let's put our money together. So-and-so's barn burned down. We've seen all of that. That's society helping each other. But then profit margins came in, and marketing, and so many other things. And now we've got these entities that become in large part insurance companies, in large part investment banks, in large part so many other things. And the people that are getting lost in the shuffle are the consumers that are having to buy these products, and we're getting screwed at the time of relief, and our constituents are getting screwed over when it time is to pay the next premium for the following year.
Would it surprise you to know, I had an automobile accident not too long ago, and the tow truck said, if you tow it to this auto body shop, I can do it for free. But if you tow it over here, it's $200.
It happens every day.
Then later I find out that some of these collision centers are owned by the same insurance companies.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate your amendment. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Yeah, I think it's a good amendment. And I know the senator not intended to drop this on them last minute. I know you've talked about this, Mr. President, about the rising cost of insurance, and so many others have in this building on both sides of the aisle. My question or suggestion was, let's accept it. If it doesn't work out, we can always strip it. We can figure this thing out as this thing unfolds. But insurance companies, constituents, Democrats and Republicans alike, are tired of what's happening to them on the auto and home insurance side of the aisle. And so I think that it's incumbent upon us to try to make these types of pieces of legislation even better when we can.
Senator Schwartner on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. While I share the concerns of Senator Gutierrez and Senator Menendez regarding potentially inappropriate or retaliatory actions of insurance companies when it comes to claimants, I will have to oppose this floor amendment because I do think it is a relatively complex initiative for TDI to undertake, as well as there's other pieces of legislation that have to do with premium increases and limiting those within a certain flex band that will be coming hopefully to this floor in the near future. For that reason, I oppose Senate floor amendment number 1.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell.
11 yes votes, 19 no votes. The amendment fails. The following amendment. Secretary will read the amendment.
Mr. President, I'm going to pull that subsequent amendment. I'm just going to do the first one.
Members, the amendment has been pulled down. Senator Schwartner, you're recognized. Pass to engrossment.
So moved, Mr. President.
Secretary will call the roll when ready.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
There being 29 ayes, no nays, the bill passed to engrossment. You're recognized by the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Berg, Webb.
29 ayes, no nays. The constitutional 3-day rule is suspended. Now, on final passage, committee substitute for Senate Bill 458. Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 458 relating to an appraisal process for disputed losses under personal automobile or residential property insurance policies.
You recognize on final.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move final passage of committee substitute Senate Bill 458.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Berg, Webb.
29 ayes, no nays. The bill is finally passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Senator Cook, can you come forward for a moment? Hagenbu. I did not release you from up here. You have your bill book? You're a Navy man and you already lost your bill book. Oh, you don't. He doesn't need any notes, folks. He says he can handle it. Yeah. So this is interesting here. We have two freshmen. She has her bill book. He can't find his. So he is going to lay out her bill because he said he can do it without any notes. And if we can find a bill book for him, she will lay out his bill because she's an emergency room doctor. She can respond quickly to do whatever is needed. Nurse. Okay, you can return. He'll do, Senator Cook, he'll do a great job on your bill. Yes, you can return to your desk now. Senator Hagenbu, you're recognized to suspend the committee substitute 1307, which is a Senator Cook bill. Send us the suspend the regular order of business. So can you explain her bill?
Thank you, Mr. President.
What's it called at the top, by the way?
Senate Bill 1307, TDI Pink Book. Senator Molly Cook. Reference. All right, thank you.
Tell us what it does.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the Senate regular order of business, take up and consider committee substitute for Senate Bill 1307. Members, committee substitute for Senate Bill 1307 directs the Texas Department of Insurance to, in consultation with the Health and Human Services.
Wait a minute. You said you could lay out a bill without any notes. You said you could lay out a bill without any notes. You're a Navy man.
I can lay out my bill without any notes, sir.
Yeah, but when you're on the floor, didn't you study her bill to know how you were going to vote, yes or no?
Members, this is a heck of a good bill. I suggest we pass it. Mr. President, I move to suspend the Senate normal business and take up to consider Senate Bill 1307.
Senator Campbell, what purpose?
To ask the author of the person who's laying out the book for an author where he really doesn't understand the bill and he's just trying to pull one over on us. I I think he's saying it's a good bill without even knowing what it is. If he can lay it out without a bill book, I'd like him to explain what this bill does that you're laying out, because it is so good that you're laying it out. Oh, no, without looking, because I wouldn't want you to look if you've told the lieutenant governor and members that you can do it without a book. And then I'm still wondering, are you having Senator Cook lay your bill out because you lost your bill book? I'm just confused.
Thank you, Senator. Which question would you like me to answer first?
Okay. Now I expect every member to get on their mic. I would like the first part that I asked, which was you to define the bill without looking at the bill. Since you said the bill was so good that you recommend we all vote for it, and you can't tell us what the bill is.
Well, Senator, it's simply a guide.
And watch how you answer the question.
Yes, ma'am. I'll do my best for you. Appreciate you, by the way. Your question is a great question.
As great as the bill. Are you looking up there to tell us what the bill is about?
It's about health coverage, which is important to all of us. So I think that kind of explains it.
Oh, that kind of explains it? Well, remember, we have a freshman who believes that the only thing you have to explain is that just a broad topic like it's a health bill. Well, what if it says that you don't have to pay your insurance policies because the state of Texas will go ahead and pay for your health care coverage? Would that be a good bill? Because the state's going to use all the dollars just to pay health care instead of insurance. Or I'm just trying to get at how this is a good bill for it's about health care.
Thank you, Senator. Based on your great experience, I'm wondering, is Senate rules, do they ever, maybe you could just give me a little advice. Do they ever let you call a friend here? Is that one of the rules? Is that a possibility?
You do have lifelines, but only after you're a freshman.
I had an expert witness here, but I could probably answer your question a little better than I could.
No. Who would your expert witness be? The person who really authored the bill?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Senator.
President.
Thank you. I'm just shocked, actually. You've been here now over 80 days, and you're coming to the floor. You apparently are voting yes for it. You don't know what you're voting yes for.
Really no excuse, sir.
Senator Kolkhorst, this is your subject area. You know health.
So, Mr. President, I was over here kind of conducting business, and all of a sudden I see this bill flash up here. I'm like, Cook, that's maybe her first bill, and I know this bill really well. In fact, when I first met with Senator Cook, I said, Senator Cook, I have this idea. I think it would be a really good idea, and I'd like for you to carry this bill. And of course, Mr. President, members, you'd be shocked. The chairman of Health and Human Services, you got the opportunity named by the lieutenant governor of the state of Texas to sit on that committee. That's the committee you wanted. And one of the things that I have to say, and I'm not hazing you, I'm going to get back to him, but you took like 5 days to say, oh, Madam Chair, that's a good bill. I'll file it for you. What? So that is coming later. But this is what I want to say to you, Senator. If you can't explain this bill, obviously you don't prep to come to the floor every day. I mean, do you not read the bills on intent?
A good question.
Be careful on that answer.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a
okay,
great
so
question.
members, let's, if Senator Hagenbu is ever voting no on your bill, walk up to him and ask him what it does, because he hasn't prepared for intent and items eligible.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some idea what the bill's about, and enough to know whether I should vote for it or not.
Okay, all right. So let me ask you a question. Do you know what the pink book is out of Health and Human Services? That's a legit question. If I ask the senators to raise their hand and know what the pink book is, most of them raise their hand and say, yeah, I know what the pink book is. Ooh, you got a lot to learn, Senator. I'm going to bail you out. So the pink book is a book that if you ever want to study health and human services, it has been mandated for many years, and it literally is pink, and it is produced every biennium, and it historically goes through, and it tells you everything about Medicaid. It tells you everything about, like, in about about that thick. But and what I like to do is I like to accumulate them for many bienniums. In fact, I asked my Health and Human Services staff about a month ago, I said, I want every pink book since 2011. Do you know why I'd asked for every pink book since 2011? You don't even know what the pink book is, do you?
Yeah, I have to admit, no, I don't know what that book is.
So I asked him that because, Affordable Care Act passed then. I wanted to look at different things that had changed over the years. So here, I'm going to help you out. You know what this bill's really about?
It's about consolidating some information to give a better reference guide for consumers.
Hey man, he's getting there. He's getting there, right? So it's not going to be. It's the pink book for insurance, for health coverage in the state of Texas, because we know how complicated it is. I think you laid out your first bill in Health and Human Services today. Yes or no?
Yes, Madam Chair, I did. That's right.
You did. You did. Was that a good bill?
Yeah, of course, I wouldn't have laid it off if it wasn't. Yes.
You want us to, I want to tell y'all members, he's already carrying bills for the OIG. So he's working on fraud, waste, and abuse, but he doesn't even know what the pink book is. So I'm a little worried about that. We're going to have to talk about that before we vote
clarifying that for me.
Your bill out. But good luck. I encourage you to know all those bills on intent. Thank you. Thank you.
Advice. Appreciate it.
Senator Hancock.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Would the member yield? It's an easy question. The answer is yes or no.
Yeah, of course. For a distinguished senator like yourself, of course. Yes, sir.
Correct answer is yes for a question.
Yes for a question.
Because I have the floor now, and
or a question.
You may never get it back in order to pass
yes for
a single
one question.
Bill. So it's a little late because you already yielded. Did we have a conversation in the back about your legislation today?
Say again, sir.
Did we have a conversation in the lounge about your legislation and the bills you've not passed on the Senate floor today?
I believe we did. I have a tough time remembering that, but I think so.
Would you rather not talk about it in front of the Lieutenant Governor?
Brother, whatever you want to talk about, I'm happy to talk about it, Senator. Whatever you think is appropriate.
Well, we're going to talk about it. So, is this your first bill?
No, it's not. It's Senator Cook's first bill.
Yeah, so you haven't even gotten there yet. Did that have something to do with the conversation we were having?
Might have had a little bit.
Might have a little bit?
Yeah.
Was there a little whining going on?
I would call it something other than whining. Probably more like expressing concern that I get, all the things I need done for my constituents done this session.
So you're expressing your concern with the Lieutenant Governor, or your concern with what?
My concern with my own performance in serving my constituents.
And so tell me how your constituents are served by carrying a bill from a member from South Texas. You're not from there, right?
True.
Okay. Go ahead.
I figure I get this done and get on to my bills and serve my constituents.
So your concern was that you had no bills on the floor, and you're just watching the other members pass their legislation? Is that?
My concern was to go ahead and move the process forward so I can get my work done here.
So you're hoping that the Lieutenant Governor would move your process forward rather than others' process forward?
I was hoping that he'd see the right prioritization of the bills we had today.
So were you in Bible study this morning?
No, I wasn't.
You want me to share with you a little bit about what we learned in Bible study?
Please, I'd love to hear.
That we should really put others before self? You've exhibited that well till you're whining. I mean, what would you call it? You didn't call it whining.
Concern.
Were you concerned this morning about the other members that you serve with?
Mr. Chair, sure. I'm always concerned.
Who were you most concerned about?
My constituents.
Well, we'd love to see you in Bible study next time so you could learn the lessons that we learned in Bible study.
I'm sure I could use it. I'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Hancock. You were worrying me when you were asking him about what motions that I might not be happy with. Were there going to be 2 vacate the chairs today? I just wasn't sure. I always want to be sure.
Not
Senator Huffman, you're recognized.
Thank you. Permission to question the
Do you
pretend
yield?
author of the legislation?
I yield for a question.
You don't have a clue about what's in this bill, do you?
Slight clue.
Slight clue. Well, I'll tell you, in the old days, we used to have these big boxes under the desk that would actually have printed copies of the bills, so you could have pulled it out and looked. But we don't do that anymore. Now we have those computers. So just as friend to friend, colleague to colleague, why don't you pull out your computer, and you could pull up the bill, and then you could at least read the bill analysis or so forth, yeah. Where's your computer?
Right here in my hand, ma'am.
What about the Ledge Council issued one? The one that we paid for. The state, it says on it, paid for property of Ledge Council. Where is yours?
I'll find out, ma'am. I have right here, it looks like.
Did you lose it?
Temporarily misplaced.
Oh, okay. Do you know how much those things cost?
A rough idea.
Right. Don't you think you should be responsible enough to know where your computer is? Do you tell your kids that?
You always know where your gear is and keep it in good shape. So
Actually, it's over here on my desk. I stole it. I didn't go to Bible study either, so I didn't see the thou shalt not steal. But I'll give it back to you. But this is just part of the process. We actually think you're doing a fabulous job. You're a great member of the Senate. And I'm sure that Senator Cook can, well, I'm not sure she can explain it better than you, but I guess we'll see. But welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Senator Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the gentleman yield for questions?
You yield.
Yes, yield for a question.
Senator,
my good brother and friend and kind person that I know. Yeah.
Well, Senator, I hope you'll think I'm kind when this is all said and done. But let me ask you this. I'm curious because I'm concerned about this bill that you're laying out. It concerns me that you don't know what's in the bill, one. But it also concerns me that, is this the possibility that you are laying out Obamacare 2.0? Is that possible?
That couldn't be. Mr. Chairman, you know me well enough to know that there couldn't be anything farther from the truth.
Well, I don't know. I'm concerned. I'm concerned that you've got a bill that would deal with this topic broadly. I'm really perplexed, Senator.
I understand. This bill simply provides a consumer guide. By no means expands health care in the way that Obamacare did. But
all right,
yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, let me ask you this. Let me do a little trivia about your district for a moment. What Texas city has a cemetery that has more elephants buried than human beings? Any idea? Any idea? It's in your SD. You're the junior senator from the region.
I'll have to find out.
Well, it would be Gainesville. Gainesville would in fact have a cemetery that right there in the heart of your district that has more elephants buried in a cemetery than human beings. So just take that now, food for thought.
Giving a speech here tomorrow night for the Medal of Honor, so we'll take a look at this. Look at the elephants. So no donkeys, I hear. Yes.
All right, let me ask you another one. We'll make something easier. How about what city in Texas has the world's littlest skyscraper?
The world's littlest skyscraper.
World's littlest skyscraper. Senator, you travel this district day in and day out. You've been everywhere, every community. You should know this, Senator.
Is this germane to this bill?
I think it's germane to your service as a senator.
Germane to my service. Well, I'll have to. At plebe at the Naval Academy, there was 3 answers: yes, sir, no excuse, sir. So no, sir, no excuse, sir. I don't have an answer for that.
I mean, I don't understand. I mean, this is a basic educational item to understand what's happening in your district.
I understand, Senator. How could there be anything more important than the smallest skyscraper
in the world?
In the world.
In the world.
Yeah.
This is a big deal.
Highly remiss in not knowing that.
This is a Guinness Book of World Records deal.
Yeah.
And you don't know?
I have to admit, I don't know.
My friend, it's Wichita Falls. It's Wichita Falls. Is Wichita Falls in your district?
It is. Yes, it is. Yes. That I know.
Well, look. Oh, I don't know, Senator Betancourt, we get allowed to dial a friend here, a lifeline? Listen, in all seriousness, we're honored to have you. We're excited to have you. Welcome to the Texas Senate. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Senator.
For anyone watching online, these are two freshmen, and we hazed the freshmen a little bit. We've passed 240 bills, so we have a little bit of time to do this. We're doing all our work. Senator Blanco, do you have a question?
Questions for the victim?
Yes. Do you yield? Do you yield?
Yield for a question from my good shipmate friend, who I'm sure will be kind.
Is that so? All right. Well, first of all, there's just a little bit of clarity. Can you enlighten us? How do you pronounce your last name? Is it Hagenbusch? Is it Hagenbuck? Is it Hagenboo? What? Can you give us some clarity?
Well, Senator, it's one of the great mysteries of the world. No one knows that answer for sure.
So what is the pronunciation?
What is it? What's it mean?
How do you pronounce it?
I pronounce it Hagenboo, but
hey, can you go a little slower than that?
Hagenboo.
Hagenboo. Boo. Okay, got you. All right, I got you, boo. I got you, boo. Well, first and foremost, Senator Boo Boo, I want to welcome you to...
Senator, correct you, Hagenboo. I got that pronunciation a little wrong.
I got you,
that
boo.
time, right?
I got you. You know, it's a big milestone for you to be here, and but a bit even greater milestone is that you just turned 65. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Well, happy birthday to you. I know we've only been working together for a short time. I think you dropped your pen there. But really appreciate the camaraderie and the friendship that we've been able to build, especially because of your military service. You and I both served in the Navy, and even though you served a long time ago, many years ago, but you probably served in the Navy with the author of Anchors Aweigh, the song, right?
That is the song, the Navy's hymn song, yes. Yeah.
Well, Senator Birdwell and myself, you know, we've got an Army-Navy rivalry, but I think something that Senator Birdwell and myself definitely agree on is I think we should hear Senator Hagenboo's rendition of Anchors Aweigh. What do you think, Senator Birdwell?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
May I be recognized to respond appropriately?
Army-Navy working together here?
No, sir. Actually, I'm watching in a case of fratricide with two Navy guys going at each other here.
Okay. Yes, so, you can be recognized. For what purpose?
Mr. President, is the member asking for me to yield?
Actually, I have the floor.
He has the floor.
Hey,
he's a lieutenant colonel of the United States Army. I wouldn't mess with him.
Mr. President, I'll tell you, if he had 10 more of those against me, it might be a fair fight.
Senator Burt,
if
Senator
you would
Birdwell.
like to, may I make the motion to caucus in the parking lot with the freshmen?
Mr. President, I will yield like the Army team yielded to the Navy team last fall.
Anytime, tough guy. If you're feeling froggy like seals, just go ahead and leap, dude.
Bring it on, Grunt.
Okay.
Did you have a purpose, Senator Birdwell?
Look, Mr. President.
Yes. Do you yield for him? Do you yield?
Yield for
the question was from Senator Blanco.
Oh.
So I'm yielding to Senator Blanco as an esteemed member, senior member of the Senate.
Yes.
If I may, you know. So, Senator Blanco, I would ask for that rendition with Senator Hagenbuch's mic turned off, yours on, so that we listen to you sing it, but not have him accompany you because, you know my emergency and disaster powers bills are going to come up next week, and my fear is that Senator Hagenbuch's joining you in the rendition with the mic on would qualify for a governor's emergency and disaster declaration because of the horrible horrible talents, vocal talents of Senator Hagenbuch. Do you concur with that, Senator?
Mr. President, I raise a point of order.
I'm confused too. I have no idea what he just said, but go ahead.
Typical Army.
Yes. So I'm going to wrap this up so we can get to Molly.
I yield, Mr. President.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hoo-ah.
Yes.
Well, anyway, go ahead. Please sing your best rendition of Anchors Away.
Senator, for the
5,
the
6,
one,
7, 8.
for one and only time I'll probably ever agree with the intelligence.
Let me help you with the lyrics.
Yeah. For yours and the rest of the senators' sort of mercy, I will not sing this song. You probably break the windows in here. This one thing I can't do is sing.
All right. That's fine. We'll leave you off the hook here on that one. But I do believe that when you served in the Navy, you were a Navy Seabee. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you explain to the body what a Seabee is?
Pardon me?
Can you explain to the body what a Navy Seabee is?
Navy Seabee. Navy Seabee stands for Combat Construction Battalion. So we work alongside the Marine Corps and our motto is we build, we fight. Another motto of Navy Seabees is can do. They always find a way to get their job done. So made their name in World War II, working with the Marines, when the islands, as we fought across the Pacific Ocean.
So how long were you a Seabee?
9 years.
9 years. And what exactly did you do as a Seabee?
I was a Seabee company commander.
Wow. So there was a movie called The Fighting Seabees. Was that movie, did it portray you?
Objectively speaking, it was the best movie ever made. John Wayne, The Fighting Seabees.
So what you're saying is John Wayne played you in the movie?
I think he played some of the great Seabees from World War II.
So it wasn't John Wayne who played you?
No, I think he was.
Was that you then? Did this guy play you?
If you were, that doesn't look at what I've been doing. I was doing in the Seabees.
Well, listen, it's been fun serving with you. We had a lot of good conversations about our military service, and it's great to have another fellow Navy man on the floor. But congratulations and welcome to the Senate, and appreciate your service to the state.
Appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
You appear to have a repeat customer and a new customer, Senator Bettencourt. Senator Cook, we're coming to you. Senator Bettencourt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking of repeat customers, Senator Hagenbuch, okay? I seem to remember on my bill, you were standing at the dais and you were supposed to be gaveling out my bill, and you couldn't make the gavel work. Do you remember this?
Mr. Chairman, I believe I found an alternate method.
Right. In fact, there's a great video of you using an alternative method, which I now have apparently been immortalized, like with 100,000 views, of you grabbing your shoe and trying to use that as a way to gavel out the bill. Do you remember that? Have you seen that video?
I have. As I said earlier, Seabees always find a way, can do.
Right, so I assume that you learned that in CB training to grab your shoe, because the only other person I know that has done is Nikita Khrushchev, and I'm not really sure that you were following the premier of Russia at the time.
Wasn't planning on emulating him, no.
Right,
no, yeah.
Now there's also another rumor, the aforementioned Senator Cook, okay, some enterprising CB has stripped her microphone away. Did you do this as an entire attention getter in this whole process, to strip the microphone away from your fellow classmate so she can't even lay out her own bill? So you're like actually responsible for the last 30 minutes of total wasted Senate productivity.
Well, Senator, I will say that the Navy Seabees have a reputation of what we might call midnight requisition of various supplies and materials.
Midnight requisition, could you explain that a little more eloquently?
Well, I would say that, let's say the Seabees need a transmission for a vehicle. the next morning, the Air Force may not have the transmission for the vehicle, but the Navy vehicle may have one. So something like that. But I have to say, I wasn't that resourceful in this situation.
The fact that you could describe a crime exactly and have a motive with it that says CBs have midnight, acquisition, and we see a crime in process because she has no ability to respond. Do you, Senator Cook? You're muted at this point, right? That's right. So would you like to admit to the crime, or should we start an investigation as we speak?
I would recommend investigation.
No, well, I tell you, what I'd recommend is you have suffered enough at this point in time. However, we're going to hold that high bar. Now that we know that you're a CB, we're expecting you to be able to pass this, lay this bill out. So get to work.
Senator Hagan.
Well, you're still there. Just, I believe I had a little mishap at one of the events we had, so I have something for you. Hoping I can sit next to you in the future. It's a bid that says rookie splash guard. So I'm hoping that you could take that with as an olive branch, and maybe one day I'd be able to sit next to you again.
Well, Mr. President, either take it as an olive branch or frick and frack wherever he is. Senator Birdwell and I are going to have to meet you in the parking lot at the same time. Hooah!
Okay. I was wondering if that's the new tie that he purchased for you after he spilled a plate of spaghetti on your tie.
Well, it was actually a large bottle of red wine, but Senator Colcourse bailed him out. As all good seniors do for junior members in this body.
Senator Campbell, you were finished, or did you have another? You had another? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I want you to know that Senator Hagan-Boo is my vice chair in nominations, and he does a great job. So with that, welcome so much.
Thank you. Well, you've been a great example to follow.
You know what? This is an opportunity to do something we've never done before. Senator Cook, would you come up here? Come up here. You can come up here, all the way. This is a first. I don't think we've ever done this in 10 years as Lieutenant Governor, to actually let the author of the bill gavel the bill. Is there any objection to suspending regular order of business? None? All right. Gavel your bill.
He's smarter than the rest of us.
You don't want to get, we can't pass your bill if you don't gavel it. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a shoe if you'd like to borrow it.
Yeah. All right, Senator Cook. So we have moved on, suspend the regular order of business. Senator Cook, what are we doing with you now? What bill do you have? Oh, we have to finish your bill first? Okay. Do you know what to do next?
Yes, Mr. President. Move for passage to engrossment.
Good, but I have to lay out the bill first. Committee Substitute 1307. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee Substitute, Senate Bill 1307, relating to a biennial health coverage reference guide developed by the Texas Department of Insurance.
So what are you doing now?
Move to suspend the normal order of business. The constitutional rule for.
No. What was the first thing you said?
Oh, move for passage to engrossment.
Yeah. No one's ever explained to us, what does engrossment mean?
Engrossment basically means that we're going to prepare the bill in its form that it would go to the other chamber.
An engrossing conversation. Any get my right gavel here. Any objection? Hearing none. I almost caught myself there. That would have been a first. Now, what's next?
Mr. President, move to suspend the constitutional rule. The bills we read on 3 in several days.
How many votes you need for that?
Pardon me?
How many votes you need for that?
We need 4/5 of the members that are present, which today I believe would be 17. Pardon me, 24.
What?
Pardon me, 24. 24. Pardon me, Mr. President, correction, 24. Didn't do my math.
As a CB and you build things, don't you have to be really good at math?
Pardon me, 4/5.
Yeah. 4/5 of what?
Members that are present today. 24.
24, not 17. Yeah.
Got them mixed up.
Okay, any objection? Oh, we have to call the roll on this. See if you have, I don't even know if you get to 17, but this is Molly Cook's bill, so why do you care? Go ahead. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell.
30 ayes, no nays. Molly, your bill is still alive. You're now committee substitute for Senate Bill 1307, third reading and final passage. Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 1307 relating to a biennial health coverage reference guide developed by the Texas Department of Insurance.
You're recognized.
Mr. President, move for final passage.
Are you ready for him to pass your bill? Okay. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell.
30 ayes, no nays. Senator Cook, no one's ever done a better job on someone else's bill. They didn't know what it was about. Thank you very much, Senator. So, Senator Cook, you're recognized to spend the regular order of business on somebody's bill. Senator Hagenboo's bill, 1321. Yeah. No. Hit your red light. Hit your red light. Still doesn't make a difference, but would you like to loan her a mic? You're a CB, you can figure this out. You can't bring the bill book. You are recognized on Senate Bill 1321, suspend the regular order of business.
I move to suspend the regular order of business and take up and consider Senate Bill 1321.
Yes. What does it do?
This simply brings the TCOL officers up to pay parity with other comparable law enforcement. It will enhance the investigative power of TCOL and has a very modest fiscal note. And it also passed out of committee without any nay votes.
Now, Senator Hagenboo, that's the way to lay out someone else's bill. Of course, she did have 30 minutes to study it while you were being tortured.
But I had read it.
Senator Paxton, for what purpose?
To ask the non-author of the bill a question.
Do you yield?
I yield.
Hi. How's it going over there?
It's different, but I kind of like it.
So I had a question. You know, at the beginning of this experience that we're all in here together with, you and Senator either Hagen-Shue or Hagen-Boo-Boo, I don't know what it is now, both approached the dais, spoke to the lieutenant governor, and the lieutenant governor made a comment about you. He said, she's an emergency room doctor. Do you recall?
I did, and then I said nurse.
I didn't hear any sort of, wait a minute, you corrected the lieutenant governor?
I offered information about my role because we don't want to get into a scope of practice conversation.
We love scope of practice conversations. It's one of the things we do the most. So, but to be clear, did you correct the lieutenant governor?
I just offered up some information.
Yeah.
Was it in contrast to what he had previously said?
I would say more like in addition to.
Governor, I don't know what to say. I think Senator Hagen-Boo-Boo's bill is in really scary shape at this point, don't you think?
Yes.
Well, I don't know what to say, so that's all.
Thank you so much, Senator Paxton, for your questions.
Senator Colcourse, do you have something emotional to say to Senator Cook?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Do you yield? Yeah. What purpose?
To ask the, I don't know, not the author of the bill,
imposter. The imposter.
The imposter with red hair.
Yeah.
A question.
Do you yield?
Okay. Senator Cook, first of all, what happened to your microphone?
That's a fantastic question, Madam Chairwoman.
Well, I didn't know that we could remove microphones, so the people that set up the tables for Health and Human Services, we could save a little time on our committee. Would you remove her microphone? I'm kidding. You do, as a freshman, ask a lot of questions.
I'll take it.
If you're asking me whose microphone we want to remove on the floor, I can give you a couple of ideas, but continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would be in that list, I'm sure. You do ask a lot of questions as a freshman, and you know, we'll allow that. But let me ask you what I ask, and I want to thank my good friend Senator Blanco for getting the pronunciation right. I've not known what to call him either. So, you know, in the Senate, we just go Senator, Senator, Senator. So it's Hagan-Boo. So do you know what this bill does, really? Does it have a fiscal note?
It does have a fiscal note. I think it's either a little over $600,000 for the biennium or per year. That I don't remember exactly, per biennium.
It was close. I'm impressed. You're right. It's $600,000. I think it's per year, right? I'm going to flip my little thing up here. But so you're telling me that you come to the floor. No, you're wrong. So it's a little over $600,000 a biennium, but $337 a year. So you come to the floor prepared for intent.
Yes,
Were
ma'am.
you going to vote for this bill? I mean, are you a fiscal conservative? You're okay with spending that kind of money?
I'd say fiscal responsible, but I do think the intent of the bill is worthy goal, and I'll be voting yes on it.
Okay. All right. Now I have a really important question. This is the important question. So, as a chairman of Health and Human Services, and I'm honored to serve in that role. Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me to do that. You know, I was working on this last bill that, Senator Hagan-Boo passed for you. Ooh, that rhymed. Senator Hagan-Boo passed for you. Interesting name, but that. When I asked you, we met, and you were telling me all your priorities, and I said, listen, sometimes, we, kind of ask other members to carry bills. Why did it take you like 5 days to give a green light on a book that can help the consumers out there navigate the healthcare world and their health insurance world? I mean, did you go on vacation? Did you not have my cell phone number? Did you just not like the policy? Because it's going to end up being your first bill.
Well, I haven't taken a vacation since the first time I ran for the seat, but I am nervous as a cat and read every single word. So we just processed it all and got right back to you, and we're so grateful to carry it.
All right, okay. Well, I'm glad you like the bill, because you can talk to the Department of Insurance if they're going to make it. Tell them not to make it the pink book, because we all know what the pink book is. Maybe it's a blue book or whatever it is, right? In general, you vote for all bills that spend money, or do you?
No, ma'am.
No?
No, not all the bills that spend.
All right, you're on local and uncontested. What would have happened if this bill would have come to local and contested with that fiscal note on it?
That's a great question. It could possibly have gotten moved to the floor for concern over a fiscal note.
Yeah, okay. Senator Hall, she's learning. Fiscal notes, no fiscal notes, right? No enhancement of penalties. I learned that one. I got one kicked off by the Senator Hall the other day. So anyway, all right. So I want to just establish you're always prepared for committee, correct? I can remove your microphone now that we've set the precedent. And number 3, you're prepared for intent, and you're going to kick off bills off of local and uncontested that have fiscal notes. What's your answer? What say you?
Yes.
All right, good.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Congratulations on your first bill, and I hope that you can get Senator Hagan-Boo over the line.
I hope so too. Thank you.
Senator Hagan-Boo, I'm actually in shock here. After you've just been through 30 minutes of general confusion, you actually want to speak again to ask a question? Is that true? No, go ahead, please. Ask your question. You all sharing is this a Sonny and Cher here, sharing a microphone? I got you, babe. What is this here?
Pardon me, say again, sir.
No, continue.
Is it true that they were having difficulty recruiting enough and retaining officers in agencies like this in the state?
I believe that is true, which is why we want to bring their pay parity up and make sure that we're investing in the folks who are investigating our crimes.
Excellent answer. Thank you.
This is the duet. This is the duet of the year. Well, I've never seen this before in the history of the Texas Senate. Yeah. Senator Blanco, you're back. Is this another song? I Got You, Babe? It's something to share here, right?
It's more like I Got You, Boo.
Very good. Very good.
I just heard the exchange about compensation and leave, and I'm looking at the caption. It says, for certain peace officers. Why don't you like all of police officers, or just certain ones? Which ones are we excluding? Because we've got some in the gallery, and it's an important bill.
Well, I wouldn't call it excluding as much as we're just finally including the T-Cole officers.
Finally including. Oh, it's pretty good. Is that accurate, Boo? Are you sure? All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Blanco.
She is a quick study on your bill. Maybe we should let her lay out everybody's bill from now on. She seems to know them pretty well. All right, so where are we? We are suspending the regular order of business on his bill. Oh, Senator Alvarado, I missed you over there. Sorry. You sit next to her all session, so you should be prepared.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a parliamentary inquiry.
Please.
Is it proper, is it in order for a member to lay out a bill, to even speak from somebody else's desk and microphone other than their own?
No.
So would a point of order be ripe? In order?
If you'd like to bring it.
Okay.
In the Senate?
Ooh. Would it be sustained?
So I'd have to
Asking for a friend.
But here's the question. I'd have to, if I sustained your point of order, which I'd have to have a long discussion with the parliamentarian, you'd actually be killing his bill, not her bill.
Right.
So is that your intent?
I don't want to kill their bills. I just wanted to know why she had to go all the way over there to lay out his bill. I mean, I see two errors here. First of all, she's not even laying out her own bill, and she's at his desk.
Yeah, this is going to give our Secretary of the Senate, Patsy Spa, a headache all night.
Mr. President, does anybody know where her microphone is?
I have nothing to do with that.
I mean, Senator, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Senator Cook, you have you've been holding on dearly, clutching your bill book.
For 2 weeks.
Lost sight of the microphone that is stationary. It's right here. Did you even look for it?
No, ma'am, I was actually at the dais, I believe, whenever the microphone was removed.
So you didn't care about where your microphone is?
I cared deeply about where my microphone is.
You want to come back and look for it?
No, that doesn't seem dignified.
Should I look for it? I mean, I don't know why I should do it, but I'm a senior member. I mean, you're the junior member in Harris County.
I'm sure we'll find it.
Okay, well, she doesn't seem to be worried about it. Welcome to the Texas Senate. I hope you find the microphone, because you cannot just camp out over at Senator Hagen-Dazs or Hagen-Boo, Honey Boo Boo's desk. In fact, I think Senator Flores had a bill yesterday about camping.
Would this be allowed under your bill yesterday, Senator Flores? Would this be allowed? Would this be camping? Kind of, okay. Okay, so we're going to suspend the regular order of business. What order is that? What rule is that?
Suspending the regular order of business?
Yeah, what rule is that?
That we're supposed to go in order of the bills as they are introduced to the Senate.
Okay. And you're suspending that?
Correct. Well, asking us to.
You're what? I'm sorry?
Asking all of us to.
Asking them. Okay, members, do you want to suspend the regular order of business for actually his bill? Oh, so all the Republicans are voting against your bill. Any objection? I only saw two. So the rules are suspended. The chair now lays out Senate on this hazing day for these two members. Senate Bill 1321, being laid out by Senator Cook for Senator Hagenbu. It's bipartisanship at its best. You may read the caption.
Senate Bill 1321 relating to compensation and leave for certain peace officers.
You're recognized for passage to engrossment.
I move passage to engrossment.
Any objection? Hearing none. Now you're recognized. Bill passed to engrossment. You're recognized to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
I move to suspend the constitutional rule that bills should be heard on 3 several days.
Yeah, by the way, why do we do that? We do it all the time. Why do we do that?
We do to move more quickly.
Boy, she is sharp. She is sharp. The constitutional 3-day rule, Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado Bencourt.
30 ayes, no nays. The constitutional 3-day rule is passed. And now the chair lays out for reading and final passage. Senate Bill 1321, one final passage. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 1321 relating to compensation and leave for certain peace officers.
You're recognized on final passage for his bill.
For my dear friend, Senator Hagenbu, I move final passage.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado Bencourt, Bergwell Blanco.
30 ayes and no nays. That's teamwork there. Thank you, members. Thank you. Following motion in writing, Secretary, read the motion.
Motion in writing. Mr. President, the following members hereby request to suspend Senate Rule 7.07B to permit the introduction of bills and resolutions as follows. SB 3042 by Hughes.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Following motion in writing, Secretary, read the motion.
Motion in writing. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent for Senate Bill 440 relating to audits of and reports by self-directed and semi-independent financial regulatory agencies to be withdrawn from the Committee on Business and Commerce and re-referred to the Committee on Finance. Motion by Hinojosa Hidalgo. Schwartner, Chair of Committee from which bill is being withdrawn. Huffman, Chair of Committee to which bill is being re-referred.
Any objection? Hearing is none, motion is adopted. Following motion in writing.
Motion in writing. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent for Senate Bill 2876 relating to increasing the criminal penalty for participating in a riot while wearing a mask or other face covering to be withdrawn from the Committee on Criminal Justice and re-referred to the Committee on State Affairs. Motion by Senator Hughes. Senator Flores, Chair Committee from which bill is being withdrawn. Senator Hughes, Chair Committee to which bill is being re-referred.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion adopted. Following bill on first reading in reference to committee, Secretary, read the bill.
Senate Bill 3042 by Hughes relating to the resumption of employment by certain retirees under the Texas Municipal Retirement System to finance.
The President's desk is clear. Any announcements? Any announcements? Senator Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick announcement that the local and uncontested calendar has been placed on your desk to review before the calendar to be held in the Senate chamber on Thursday, April 10th at approximately 12 p.m. noon. Thank you, Mr. President and members.
Senator Birdwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the 24-hour posting rule in accordance with Senate Rules 1110 and 1118 and all necessary rules so that the Senate Committee on Natural Resources can meet upon adjournment today, April 9th, at my desk to consider 4 bills, 1150 by Middleton, 2122 by Zaffrini, and 1757 and 2050 by Birdwell. Mr. President, members, if there are no questions, I move suspension.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is adopted. Senator Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend the 24-hour posting rule in accordance with Senate Rules 11.10 and 11.18 so the Senate Committee on Jurisprudence can meet today, Wednesday, April 9th, here at Desk 1, immediately upon adjournment to consider pending business. And that's my motion.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is adopted. Senator Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Transportation Committee will reconvene at 3:20 in the same room we're in, E1016. 3:20.
Senator Kolkhorst.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just an announcement to Health and Human Services. We will meet back on this floor right here in the Senate chamber at time certain 3:20, and that's my announcement.
Chair recognizes Dean of the Senate for a highly privileged motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate recess until 10 a.m. Thursday, April 10th.
Members, any objection to the motion? Chair hears none. The Senate stands in recess until 10 a.m. Thursday, April 10th.